Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Midweek Mix-Up Podcast. And this week, our awesome guest, you should already know him. He's ACG, Angry Centaur Gaming. Jeremy Penter is joining us live. It is an absolute honor and pleasure to have you on, sir.
Thanks for inviting me.
Straight into the introductions, and first of all, we will introduce yourself. It's like I say, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. What have you been up to? What you've been playing there, sir?
Tales of Arise I've been playing, which is a big surprise. And, oh yeah, if you want to check out the channel, I always forget to pimp myself. ACG on YouTube. I think it's /ACG now. I think I have one of the, the specialized ones. I don't go by Angry Centaur. I haven't for years, but people still call me that. So I'm just like, whatever, it's cool. I do reviews, I do previews, and industry pieces on art usually now. So sort of like the Digital Foundry, but for art, the shit that matters. Excuse my language, but it's been an awesome ride, man. And Tales has been a surprise. Like jumping into this game, I've jumped from a couple really crappy games, so to jump into this, I played Aliens, and I know people liked it, but I wasn't a fan. Psychonauts 2, I was really impressed with, and I didn't know what to think of Tales from Arise. But so far, I'm about 3/4 of the way through. That game, stunning. Like, really happy with that game. And I'm not a huge fan of the Tales series, so that's been very cool to do. Reviews seem really high, too. I don't know if you guys saw them, but I think they're in the 90s.
I haven't looked yet, but I did see there was one of the guys, because I podcast on Primetime with Boomstick as well, and one of the guys in the private chat there mentioned your review, and he said ACG likes Tales of Arise, and he doesn't normally like that stuff, so I'm really excited.
I don't, man. JRPGs... I mean, well, should I stop talking so you guys do your intros?
No, keep going.
I want to make sure I don't talk over anybody. Oh, so JRPGs are my thing depending on how JRPG-ish they are. Like if they're super into the tropes, I start to bounce off a little bit. And this one has a little bit of that issue, but so far it's been awesome. There's one character I'd like to hold her head underwater until she just stopped talking. I hate her. I don't like her writing. I don't like her character. She's one of those cynical ones that's always bouncing back at the main character, that typical trope. Yeah. And they haven't really introduced a reason to like her yet. And every time she talks, I'm just like, Oosh! I just want her gone. It's just that really acerbic party character. But the combat, man, fighting game level, very close to fight. I mean, that game drops toots. That sounds dirty, but it just continually drops tutorials. It's like, hey, man, you got this. Hey, you got this. Hey, you can hold this button to delay this attack with this character. And if you buy this other skill and you can do this, and it is insanity in its combat system. Like, very enjoyable for a JR. I think that's what sold me on it more than, anything else. Also, the best looking JRPG I've seen in a long time. Like the debris in the world. I don't know if you guys have played like a Persona, but a lot of times you run around in a Persona and there's really nothing there but a box, and they try to pretend like that's cool. They're like, hey man, look at this tunnel with a box in it. And then there's a big bad guy. But in Tales, there's debris, there's shit everywhere. It just looks really lived in. So I've been very, very, very much enjoying that so far.
That's absolutely awesome. Yeah, it's one thing we're going to do in as well, straight after we've done our introductions, is get to know Karak a little bit better. I mean, one of the things I want to ask before I move on to the introductions is how, if you're no longer referring to yourself as Angry Centaur Gaming, is there a particular reason for that? I'm surprised you haven't then changed your should we say the branding then, if you don't like being...
Well, I mean, I did swish everything to ACG, like if you go to the channel, if you do Twitter, but they're honestly switching the branding when you're sort of mid-sized is a little difficult. So I just started calling, Karak with ACG. That's the username.
Yeah.
And I just started going with that. But the reason why is Angry Centaur Gaming's a damn D&D name. Like, that's a name a roommate made up for me as a joke, and then it became our rock band name, Angry Centaur Roommate, and, like, all this. It was just a random term. And I didn't think I was going to do YouTube reviews, so I just did Angry Centaur Gaming as, like, hey, we'll talk about stuff. Because I am angry, but it's only on very particular things, so a lot of people show up, and maybe they expect, like, an Angry Joe kind of thing, where every single thing is really acerbic, which I don't have an issue with. That's his style. It's just not mine.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, it's again, and he likes doing that angry stuff, Angry Joe, and that's kind of where his branding was based on.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing. That's always been the whole thing for him, and obviously it works for him. But hey ho. we will get into the rest of our panel before we get into the history of Karak. First of all, Archimedes, how are you doing today, brother, and what you been up to?
Hey there. Yeah, thanks for having me here today. What I have been up to, a lot of videos actually. Just uploaded another video earlier today, and I've been playing a couple of games. Finished Psychonauts yesterday. Fantastic game. Really loved that, and I was so surprised by how good it actually is. Amazing. Then I started the Assassin's Creed Valhalla DLC, Siege of Paris. Yeah. So yeah, if you like Valhalla, you're gonna love this one too. But some people didn't like it. I enjoyed Valhalla. I love to play more. It's an epic scale here. Battling Paris. Having fun with that. And that's basically it. Oh, I downloaded Myst, the remake. Yeah, but I'm not too far into it. Probably an hour or so. Some good old vibes there. Yeah, that's basically what I've been up to.
Sweet. And yes, you've uploaded. You have got a few videos in the running, and I think you've got another one. You've probably got another one coming up. But yeah, both a PlayStation video and an Xbox video, both released now in the past couple of days. So very busy for yourself. What's your next video based on? Or are you not ready to unveil that yet?
Oh, I haven't decided yet. That's why I can't unveil that yet. So we will see. Either probably showcase tomorrow, depending on what gets announced, or some other news we had today. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Next up, Hertog Vin. How are you doing today, brother? What you been up to?
I'm doing really good. Just got home from the beach. Last day of summer here, I think. Tomorrow it's raining again. I've been playing Psychonauts 2 as well. I got so sucked up in the game. I finished it 100%. Got all the achievements and stuff. Really liked it. Really liked it. For me, the best game of the year so far, or in years, maybe even after Sea of Thieves. And this morning I started The Last of Us on the PlayStation because Grandia 2. I was doing Grandia 2 on the Dreamcast, but the laser decided to stop and I couldn't fix it. So I will continue that later. And for now, I moved on to the next game. That was The Last of Us 1 and 2, because Erwin and Buddy told me to play it. And so far, the game, it's a bit, I don't know, getting used to the control from the PlayStation 4, to be honest. I really don't like the triggers and the sticks, but the game is good so far, so I hope I will enjoy the rest as well.
Yeah.
And that's about it for me.
Awesome stuff. Next up, Patcher. How are you doing today, brother? I know you've had a long day at work. You must be a bit tired, but have you had much chance this week to get some gaming in, and what you've been playing? Oh yeah, can't hear you. Your mic's not on.
Here I am.
There you go. Try again.
What's up, guys? What's up? I played some games this weekend, of course. Splitgate. Been playing some Apex, Psychonauts as well. What more? I think. Wait, let me check first what I played, because I can't remember.
Splitgate and Psychonauts.
I played so many games. Of course, Song of Iron as well.
Yes.
Really awesome game. So, and been pretty busy on work since Monday. Monday was a long day. Yesterday wasn't that much, but today also, and it's freaking warm here, so I'm sweating my balls off. Crazy.
Awesome stuff. Next up, welcoming back Chris Grannell. You've been a very busy boy very recently, brother. lots of stuff keeping you occupied at the minute, so it's great to have you back. And obviously you were gracing RDX's presence last night as well, so you'll probably be a little bit tired, but how are you doing and what you've been up to?
Yeah, all good, thanks. Good to be back. Been busy with work, obviously. Just been cracking on with with stuff on that side, I think when I've got some gaming in, I've been playing Alien Fireteam Elite. I've been playing some NBA 2K with Dealer. And then I've been jumped back into Forza Horizon 4 with Dealer as well. So been playing a bit of that. Getting in the mood for Horizon 5 to come out. Played a bit of Psychonauts too, but I obviously need to pick that back up. But so far, loving it. Really, really good game. And yeah, just looking through like back catalogs and stuff like that to just play stuff as and when I can. But yeah, good to be back on the show. Good to have ACG back on, and obviously, yeah, looking forward to the show.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. And we've done our full introductions here. We will introduce our community and potentially some of ACG's community who have potentially jumped in here from his Discords, etc.
Yeah,
we'll
hopefully.
We'll introduce himself. First of all, where did your start in content creation come from?
Mine?
Yes.
I mean, distaste for what was going on. Not to be rude, but that was it was basically talking to friends, and I noticed that a lot of them were asking me like what exactly I liked in games and stuff like that. And I did a couple reviews prior to losing my job. I was laid off, and I had paid for my wife to go through college. So I was just like, what do you think about me making a go on YouTube? And she was like, that's fine. You're lazy enough. You don't like to go out anyway. You might as well just stay home and make videos. It is actually an incredibly difficult job, strangely enough. I've pulled green chain at mills and done shit like that, hauled steel. And at times after doing a 10 YouTube videos and podcasts, you're just as tired. It is crazy. But yeah, I would say there were a couple things. I mean, especially when I was starting out and looking at like the current coverage. I remember being a young kid and I was getting magazines, and I was starting when YouTube was just becoming a thing. I was seeing people talk about scores, 1 to 5, 1 to 10. And I was just like, dude, nobody talks like that. Nobody, not a single person in my entire world gave a rating of like numbered scores to games. We'd sit together. I'd say, what do you think? And they'd be like, it's worth getting, or it's worth maybe waiting. And that's sort of where the buy, wait for sale, rent, never touch rating scale came from, was just because no one I know uses that vernacular. It's just that vocabulary is not used in the normal world amongst any of my friends, other than school, when you're in school and you get graded for a paper, but that shit doesn't matter for a game. And so that's pretty much what started it. Was I just noticed there was a general lack of connection between myself and a lot of the coverage I was seeing. I was seeing people do previews for games and saying they were awesome, and then the game review would come up and they were saying it was terrible. And I was finding all these idiosyncrasies in reviews that I was just like, man, none of this is speaking to me. Adam Sessler, he did G4. He spoke to me sometimes in the way he broke down games, but there was really rarely anybody that I would follow for a long period of time. And so, yeah, when I lost my job, I was like, you know what, I'm going to jump in here and give it a try and see if there's other people who sort of think the way I do. For example, music, man. Dude, this is an industry where for 20 years, people have been collecting OSTs. 20 years. There's websites with OSTs from the original Final Fantasy, and you can't tell me that every review I used to see, they never covered music. Now, admittedly, they're starting to, but most of them don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So they'll be like, it's bombastic. And you'll be like, that's not how you describe a soundtrack, but whatever. At least they're talking about it. But nobody would cover music. Nobody would cover those things. And it was so depressing. And there's such a mismatch between consumers and between coverage. So what I did was I just shot for places where I was like, what kind of coverage do I want to see? I want to see like spoken word, like this is what I think, a little bit of comedy, and covering music, sound, the things that matter. I mean, we're all sitting here with, great headphones. We're sitting here with surround sound systems, and I don't even, maybe one or two other people occasionally mention music still. And it's like one of the things that I'm like, dude, there's an entire group of people out there that just want to know if the fucking surround sound is set up right in this game, and nobody's talking about it. So that's sort of where it all began. And like I said, you hear people say losing their job was the best thing. And I used to be like, nah, because I love my job. I got paid really well. I enjoyed it. But losing my job was the best thing. It is weird to say that now, but because I remember thinking that was bullshit. You'd hear somebody say, losing my job was the best thing ever. And you're like, you sure that's not a little bit of, like a bad relationship where you just sort of have to hug the person that hits you? But technically it was. It was fantastic. It was like one of the best things ever. So
yeah, no, to be honest, I mean our channel's only a year old now. But I was started in not in the same vein, but of course, specifically over in the UK, we got furloughed, and obviously on furlough, you still have a wage, but you're out of work until you do back in work anyway, which could be months and months. So this is where the channel kind of started, and again, in much the same vein, it was a case of myself, Erwin, Patcher, and a few others always used to talk in party chats and playing games and things and stuff all the time anyway, and we thought, you know what it is, we may as well. Why don't we just turn this into a podcast? Like, go for it.
Yeah.
It's the same stuff. It's just talking to everybody else as well as just ourselves.
Now's the time to do it too. You have the most contained audience. Because, you know, a lot of people will be like, why do you push other people? Because I'll drop a Happy Console Gamer link in my review. Like, I have no issue with that. And I'm like, dude, they're not really stealing a video of you. And in the end, it's another person who likes or dislikes a game or is talking about games. Right now is the perfect time. It's why I'm always telling people on Twitter, I'm like, dude, just start. Just make a video. Now's the time. You will never get a bigger audience that is ready for content than right at this moment. And I'll see people who are like, I don't know. And I'm like, you know what? You're going to I don't know yourself right out of the business. Like that, it will happen. It absolutely will happen. You need to jump in there and just be like, let me, you know, and I always tell people, look for a segment that you don't see people covering. Re-reviews, I still don't see people doing that very often. It's very difficult, but re-reviews are something I'm still waiting for a channel that's their thing. Is like, I'm going to review this game, and then 6 months later after patches, I'm going to review it again. Or something like that. I've done a couple on the channel. It is difficult, but there's some spaces there you can shoot the gap. And I think there's actually big growth on YouTube if you are looking at trends and sort of understanding where there's some gaps. There's some awesome stuff there for people. Doesn't matter how good your webcam is, man. Just do something.
Oh yeah. It's the webcam quality itself doesn't really matter. As long as you've got decent lighting. That's like well lit. If you're well lit and have a half decent microphone, you're good to go. But you can use your phone, like phones these days. A lot of people, you can just start up using your mobile. You've got like the best camera in the world on your phone. Use it. Why not?
Yeah, iPhone cameras are ridiculous, man. I have a Pixel 3 XL, and that camera is actually pretty good too. Like it's pretty insane that you're carrying this microcomputer around. I grew up in the Apple IIe days. You know, programming using BASIC and shit. So now I'm just carrying around this awesome computer in my pocket and a camera, you know, and a chat device. It's insane.
Nokia Engage.
Nokia Engage, yeah.
Maybe not that. Or when people try to tell you the Switch is portable, and you're like, bullshit. If you're wearing cargo pants and you have like a hammer, maybe it's portable. But like, how many times have you seen somebody with a Switch just throw that in their back fucking pocket and sit down? It's broken. It's dead. You'll see that all the time. People be like, the N-Gage was the same way. It's like, that thing's not a portable, man. It's small. It's just small. That's it. Just say it like it is. It's small. It's not a portable.
Yeah, exactly. Before we get on the next question, 2 super chats now. But the first one was from The Mag. $5 super chat. Thank you very much for that. Is have a great show, gentlemen, and special shout out to ACG, a man after my own heart, the best in the biz.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Next up, BitCloud Gaming, another $5 super chat. Thank you very much, sir. Good to see everybody doing well. Shout out to the panel and ACG. Thank you again, BitCloud Gaming. Very much appreciated.
Shout out to you as well.
Yes,
shout out back,
indeed. ACG, so you mentioned before there the name ACG, Angry Centaur Gaming, came from D&D. Now, this seems to be more of a common trend, especially with some of the older creators and developers, because, of course, as you know, Joe from Song of Iron based his entire game on the D&D campaign. Is that something that has always, when you first started, has always been the case? You just wanting to kind of include that into it? Have you ever, once you started your channel, kind of done more D&D content, or is it ever?
Yeah, we just started a podcast, actually. I just started adding a podcast in that's it's called ACG&D, and it's just basically it's called ACG&D, always rolling natural 20s, because I'm really bad at naming shit. So I'll just do a name that's like 600 characters long and be like, iTunes can figure it out. But yeah, D&D role-playing, I did my first role-playing game when I was 4. And my brother, I saw my brother and his friends downstairs doing this like maps, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And as a little kid, it's even hard to articulate. And you know, family's awesome, man. I mean, like he was like, yeah, do you want to play? And I started playing, and I never stopped. Role playing's huge. And then you take that love into video games, and that's one of the things that I see now, probably the best part right now. I grew up on like Bard's Tale, the originals, like Skya Bray and all this stuff. And now we're seeing the new ones. But it's such an awesome time for gamers who like both, because now you can play D&D in Discord if you want, you know? And that's one of the things that I think is so awesome. Role playing is a different beast, man. It is a different thing, and it's so enjoyable to get together. And people joke because I don't do scripts for the reviews, and they're like, "How do you not do scripts?" And I'm like, "Because I've been a DM." And when you're a DM, like, it's your job to fill space with words. Like, that's over a particular period of time. That's what you're supposed to do. And
but are you always DM then?
I am 99% of the time. Most of my friends do not like DMing, man. DMing is because they don't want to be the bad guy. I love being the bad guy. I want to be the I love being the good guy and the bad guy, but I have no moral compunctions whatsoever for like in a game of doing, you know, a terrible thing as a bad guy. And some of my friends get that thing where they're playing more, you know, Mass Effect, and they're like, I can't make a bad choice. And I'm like, dude, all my choices are bad. Yeah. I'm like punching every single person in the game. I'm like, come on, let's see what happens. I like that kind of stuff. So and because I do talk a lot, like, it's just one of the things as a GM, you have to sort of be able to fill that space. And a lot of my friends are more thoughtful, you know, with their characters. They're like thinking about what they want to do, and it's just sort of suited me. And I think it's awesome that we see podcasts and stuff. Critical Role, that's not D&D. That's like voice actors doing something, but it still helped so much because a lot of people grew up with negativity around it. Tom Hanks made a fucking movie about it where he was basically saying kids were leaping off buildings because they believed they could fly. Like, D&D was hated. Satan, people thought you were a Satanist, all this crazy shit. And so it's so cool to see it embraced. It's so awesome to see nerd culture in that way you know, come together.
Do you make your own stories then, or
I do everything freeform. Most people use modules, but I don't think I've ever used a module. All my stuff is
you make everything yourself. Yeah,
we'll make a world in like 30 minutes. We'll be like, okay, do you guys want zombies? Yeah, but I mean, that's not for everybody. Some people like adventures, but for me, I do have a pretty active imagination, and I like to do shit. That's why you'll see me on Twitter at 3 a.m. and I'll be like, night, guys, see you in 2 hours. And then at 5 a.m. I'll be like, so up and working out. I'm just high energy. So to me, yeah. Other people do modules, and they do a great job. It's just each person's different.
Yeah. I would say D&D, or at least that kind of stuff, pretty much spawned the Western RPG.
It did. Yeah,
100%. And that's of course where we're at now, and that's why I suppose you could also do the kind of comparisons into how they do world building, etc., and these things, because a lot of these creators of people that have grown up on D&D campaigns or creating their own stories and things like that, and you kind of see how good their games used to be by how great their stories are in these games.
Yep, for sure.
Which is absolutely awesome. Before we move on to the actual topics, what bit of advice would you give to new creators, or creators that might even at this moment in time be finding it a little bit difficult to carry on or start up in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. That's one of the things we hit, is either people who have tried and they haven't really hit it off. Hitting it off is pretty rare. It is pretty rare. There's thousands of people who do amazing content that I'll look online and be like, how is this person not huge? Like, this makes no sense. Sometimes, you know, it just takes time. Sometimes it won't hit for you. We all have particular talents, and sometimes you'll put all your talent, all your expertise, you'll be twice as good as somebody else, and you'll lose the basketball game. Like, that's life. That's you have to sort of suck it up. But I would tell people to, you know, the typical adage of just doing it does matter, and the more you do matters. I think I succeeded probably because people like my dirty jokes, but the second would be because I did a lot of content. And so people, it's just over time, you're like, his name appears here. Oh, it's appearing here again. Oh, it's appearing here again. And so podcasts, make sure you have a good schedule. Make sure you do schedule stuff, because the only real talent I brought into YouTube was my old job was scheduling. It was the idea of how much can you get out of a person until they no longer performing at their optimal and no longer happy. How much can you get out of it, and what can you get out of it? And so when I went to YouTube, I did the same thing for myself. I was like, I need a schedule. I need to do this. And followers love schedules. They do. It's just comforting to know Tuesdays are this, Fridays are this. That is a huge deal. And I know a lot of people who go by emotion, and they're like, I feel like making a video. And I'm like, I get it, but don't believe the hype. You'll see people on Twitter telling you that, those are the only times to make stuff. And I actually don't agree. I'm very, very opposite that. You'll see a lot of people who are like, oh, you should make stuff at your highest energy, blah, blah, blah. And if you don't feel it today, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe. But a lot of us don't feel it most of the week.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? Not create content most of the week? Instead, if you have to do something, understand it's an opportunity. I've forgotten that, Dutch. There's been times where I'm like, I'll forget it's an opportunity, and there'll be a stress, and I'll be like, And then you have to remind yourself. I teach martial arts. A student will come in, they'll be like, oh my God, I got my green belt or whatever. And you'll be like, okay, that's an opportunity. And then you have to remind yourself, take it in. Yeah. And like take it to YouTube. That's one of the things I do as well, is like when I hear somebody sick or horrible stuff in the world, I'm like, dude, it's an opportunity to tell people about games. Like, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, is there anything more awesome than that? Probably not. Other than being a porn star. What were we going to say here?
Can I ask a rude question?
Yeah.
You said your job was building schedules, right?
That was one of the main things is I set up call centers around the world. Yeah. Puerto Rico and Ireland.
Do you still have a job, or do you live from the channel now?
Just from the channel.
Really? Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the thing is they're all different. Mine isn't necessarily, I have a middling subscriber base. What I mean by that is it's big, but it's not millions. And it does okay, but I get hit by YouTube a lot. But I have a very good patron. And so we have an awesome Discord. Like that's the one thing I can say is the community we built in Discord is like me, jokey, and like, so if you have people having problems, we always have mods who are ready to take that into account and sort of make sure everybody feels like it's a fun time, even if you have disagreements. Every YouTuber is different. You'll see some YouTubers with no patron, and you'll see some people start a patron day one, and I'll be like, dude, you can't start offering nothing. Yeah. Like the reason why my patron's good is because I had a channel for 3 years before I did the patron. You'll see a lot of people are like, I'm going to start a channel and do a patron. And I'm like, sorry, man. Do you know patrons? It's the very basics of the word is patronage for an artist who was known. At least you've seen their stuff. The patron looked at their stuff, said, I like it. It wasn't just a best friend. And a lot of people get stuck into that. And so every YouTuber is different. You'll get Angry Joe's got a website and forums and his like a completely different thing. And that's why I always tell people, work with what's your best. I'm best on Discord, Patreon, and maybe my viewership goes up and down and doesn't, I don't shoot up sometimes I do. Everybody's different. You just sort of have to embrace it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, one of the things we use, especially for our patrons anyway, I use it for is I do a lot of custom controllers and things, so a lot of the stuff I do on that can't really be translated into Twitter very well. It could be translated into YouTube, but that takes a lot of setting up because it's a lot of time-lapse type of stuff. So it's a lot easier to put that kind of stuff on the Patreon and say, right, okay, well, now we can see behind the scenes, etc. This is what's going on. This is the artwork, and this is see things before they come out to the public and what they see.
And I don't know about you guys, they've saved my bacon. Patreon has, because like YouTube banned me for 2 years for streaming and never told me why. They never even responded to my emails. Wow. Still haven't.
What?
Still haven't. And I just now got it authorized. That's why I went back. So I'm, you guys know how it is where you're trying to do something and maybe whatever you're trying to do isn't fitting. So you found that Patreon is where, or Discord and Patreon is where that works for you. And that's what you need to do. You need to look at what works and go, that spot. Don't compare yourself to all these other people who have all these things. I've seen people be like, oh man, your Patreon's so stable, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's for me. That's my thing. Yeah. It may be different for you and what you're offering.
Yeah, 100%. And like you mentioned with scheduling as well, that's one thing. Obviously, it's as a sole creator like yourself, you've got your own podcast panels, etc. But as a sole creator, then you have to manage your own schedules, especially if you're building a brand. That can obviously sometimes be a bit overwhelming for someone that's just starting. with ourselves, especially with ours, we've kind of got to the point now where everyone's doing something, or everyone's doing not only something of their own, but kind of it's interlinked with the channel. So
very cool,
very cool. Growing outwards. So Pat, as of last week, is now in charge of our Twitch content creators. So
awesome.
Anybody as a side, because we've got something called the Collective, where we kind of help smaller creators or people that are wanting to get into YouTube get up and running, provide them all the support they need on the technical front, any of the streaming issues that they might have, or how to set up in the first place, overlays and things like that. YouTube algorithms, which is a ball ache to understand in the first place. Get all that stuff out of the way of. But then Pat has been streaming on Twitch for quite a while. He's an affiliate now, so he can help them get it started. So
thank you, man.
That's really that's how we cope with the scheduling. I couldn't do myself manage the YouTube and the Twitch and the Patreon and the memberships and everything that goes in between, because it's an overwhelming amount on top of a normal job.
Yeah. So I mean, I liked it. I stepped back recently. Because on Fridays I had 16 hours of podcasts on Fridays.
Oof.
So I was waking
hours?
up. Yeah, I was waking up, working out at 2:30 a.m. and then at 4:30 started the first podcast. Did 2, then jumped into mine at 10:30, then jumped into the Ham Radio podcast with Mr. Matty at, whatever time that was going to be, 1:30 usually. And just recently, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take, especially with Twitter or Twitch having all these issues, I'm like, I'm just going to step back from every podcast and sort of get everything sort of solidified back. Because even because people tease me, they'll be like, dude, I don't know if you sleep. And I'm like, barely. But even I was looking at it going, this isn't feasible for a long period of time. Yeah. Like at some point, even if I don't die, you're just, I'm not getting enough. I have 5 dogs. I want to play with them. Like I'm always doing stuff with dogs. I teach martial arts. I'm like, dude, I've got other things. So it's like, everybody has to understand, and help is a big deal, man. I got a couple friends. We're doing our 6-year anniversary this Friday of the Discord and Patreon. And we do our podcast, and dude, no lie, one of the people on the podcast is the first person who ever posted in our Discord. In fact, we have long-term patrons, like 6 years. And so you see my post where I'm like, here's our new Discord. And the very first post is one of the people who's still on the podcast who's like, let's do this or whatever. Like that kind of stuff. You need that. You need the help, because at some point you're just not going to have the time, or you're not going to notice something. I don't know about you guys, but the game's coming out right now. Like I'm constantly like this email going, what time is this embargo, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, if you have a friend who DMs you and it's like, hey, I don't know if you are watching this game, but there's this other game. And you're like, oh, at least because there's too much for one person to filter, unless that's all their job is. But creating takes on top of that. So the way you guys have it set up is perfect. If you have somebody helping and you doing your stuff and patron, like that's the way it should. Friends, I know people think it's competitive. Dreamcast guy was on my podcast, and he's okay with me saying this. But before he jumped on, before we went live, he's like, dude, I can't believe you had me on your podcast. And I'm like, well, why not? And he's like, because I thought we were competitors. And I'm like, dude, no. Like, it just doesn't. Media, I think, is still that way. But for the most part, it just doesn't pay off to be that way. Instead, grab their strength, use it, help them out.
Yeah.
And
it's quite the opposite.
As long as you like
content creation, quite the opposite. Like, as long as you
especially
pretty much on the same wavelength, lift each other up, because believe it or not, if they come on your show, you come on your show, you've got some content, you share their content out, other people then see it's a knock-on effect. Yep. When you're working together, everybody grows at the same time. When you're trying to knock somebody down, it doesn't kind of reflect better on you. It just doesn't make sense. It's not like it isn't a competition. Like, there is enough space on YouTube for everybody. You've just got to find your slot, find your position in that space.
I learned it from Total Biscuit, strangely enough.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people found him a little acerbic, but he and I had some back and forth on Twitter. We had some overlap, and I didn't agree with a couple things, and he reached out to help me, and I was like, I feel like sort of a dick. And I was never going after him, but some of the stuff he did, I was like, I just don't get it, and I was like, why are we doing, blah, blah, blah. And he helped me for no reason. None. He just reached out and he's like, you're having a problem with YouTube? Let me help you. Now, again, you hear that in personal coaching. If you're having conflict, reach out to somebody and ask them for a favor, but he didn't. He reached out and gave me something.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I can help you. So we talked about it, and I just shot my shot. And I was like, do you want to come on the podcast? And he's like, yeah, for sure. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty. And then he's like, do you want to come on mine? And then suddenly we find out we're both fans of Airsoft. And it's like,
oh, nice.
Now you're like, you know, at that time it was like, dude, this is all. I got to meet Jenna, who's his wife, just awesome. All that team. And that was because I sort of like, I sort of just sat back and was like, wait a minute, what's this guy actually about versus whatever I was seeing on tweets and these little blurbs, which aren't really life. Yeah. They're not really life. And yeah, it was awesome, man. And hats off to him, because he was like, hey man, you know, let me help you, which I'm going to be honest, you know, we all do that, but I think when you get to a certain point, you don't see it a lot of time.
Yeah.
But he was huge at the time.
Yeah. And I have to give out on that note as well. You have to shout out the likes of, and again, the likes of Iron Lords podcast, because they do so much for the community. I mean, Ian's from Season Gaming. He's exactly the same. He reaches out and kind of tries to do as much as he possibly can for the community. Cole and all of those do exactly the same. Asa from Game On Daily, he'll happily jump into a DM and help you out with certain things for absolutely no reason. Like he's put on 4K 60 HDR content onto YouTube recently, and I was like, how is that even, like, how do you even manage to put that on? He's like, you don't even want to know, but I'll DM you anyway, and I'll show you.
Yeah, I've been doing that. It's been fun. It's been fun. Like that's another thing. If you're going to make content, you might as well make it really high quality. By the way, if he's having a problem with his keyboard picking up, all he has to do is just hit the mute button. Yeah, he's typing. He's like disconnecting and reconnecting. I'm like, dude, don't rebuild the world because the sun puts a shadow somewhere. He's like, hang on, I'm gonna rebuild my PC. I'll be right back. And you're like, that's a lot of work if you just hit the mute button. But what about you guys? Are you guys are you not happy with where you are, because we all want to do better? Yeah. But as you guys are putting this together, have you been pretty happy with what you're seeing?
Oh yeah. I'm very happy with specifically the community we're building, and that's the one thing that we've loved all the way through, is the community that we've got has been pretty consistent all the way through. And the more it grows, the more it's not like-minded people, but it's people that they're all lifting each other up. Like our chat is just insane. Like there is pretty much zero negativity in the chat on a week-to-week basis. They're all talking to each other, they're all introducing each other, welcoming each other, and it's just that is the one key thing for us, is just building up that community. And I've been happy to see that grow. And then knock-on effects on other people, because again, with the collective which we introduced, it's building up their community, and likewise they're very similar-minded, and they'll do exactly the same thing. And I'm loving where it's going. And again, we're only just starting, only a year in and on like 1,000 subs, but
I'm only 1 month in.
Yeah, he's 1 month.
You're 1 month in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But no,
but I became Twitch affiliate in a month, thanks to the awesome community here as well. Yeah. I you know, everybody had their thing, you know, on the channel or on YouTube or on Twitch. So I was like, I need to do something as well, and I started Dreamcast streaming on Twitch. Very cool. Now I'm affiliate as well, you know, and I'm 1.5 months, I think, now here.
Yeah, and we have an affiliate program where we're like, if a person comes in and is like brand new, we're like, dude, we got it. And everybody will just flood their channel. Because here's the thing, guys, those guys are getting free content.
Yep.
They're getting free streaming. Like YouTube will be all, we're not going to monetize it. It's like, bitch, you're playing it anyway. Like, what are you talking about? And so the best you can do is help somebody get a reward financially, even if it's $1. There's something awesome about getting $1. And you're like, I just got $1. Dude, when I remember the first time I got 20 subscribers in a day, and I was just like, dude, it's double digits.
Yeah.
Like, to me, I still remember that day being like, that's awesome. Like, that's 20 people want to watch this.
It's the same with our community now, right? We have UK Desirous, you know, I don't know if you know him. He's also a mod in this program, and he went to Twitch as well, and then we made him affiliate, and now we're doing it with other guys, and everybody's helping each other, right? It's the community we have here is really great. We put it in Discord, you know. Hey, I want to take a shot at Twitch. I want to take a shot at YouTube. I want to do this, and we all help each other.
Yep.
It's crazy. I only joined like a month and a half, I think now. maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago. I think. I don't even know.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
And Pat, what do you stream? What do you stream? You do Twitch. What are you streaming on Twitch? What games?
I stream different kind of games. It depends on what kind of game I want to play. But in the beginning, I mostly streamed PUBG because I'm a huge fan of PUBG. Lately, I'm taking a break on it because it's a bit broken. I don't know what happened, but yeah, I like battle royale games, shooting games, racing games, and I've been into the Ascent. That's normally I don't play those kind of games, and we were talking on the podcast about this game and saw some trailers, of course, some gameplays, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna expand my game experience and I'm gonna start playing this game. And since day one, I was hooked. I think in a week I completed the game, and yeah, it's awesome, man. So like I said, I try to stream as much as possible, different kind of games, and
dude, shout out to the Ascent too, because I did a video walking the walk where I cover the art or tech stuff, and that's really got you can get that first person camera and look around. There's shit going on in that game that a human would never see if you played it normal.
Was that your video, the first person view?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that was crazy.
It's amazing looking. There's stuff going on. And it's just like, dude, this is so legit to see this. It out cyberpunk. And I get that people are like, you can't compare them. You can. I can compare a dildo to a fucking wallflower if I wanted. I can figure out a way to compare them. But you can compare them in theme and tone and stickiness. Does it stick you to the fiction? Whatever. You can compare those. You can. Across any genres, you can compare those. And that game made me more interested in that world than I've ever been in Cyberpunk, and I'm a Cyberpunk RPG fan. Like, I was like, indent. Does it mean indentured, or does it mean like an indent, which if you look up the meaning, that actually means like a difference from the rest, like indented in a paragraph. And I love that there's all these secrets. If you read up on the Ascent, like the planet's name is the Slavic god for wetness and solitude and lower class, and where do you start? In the sewers. And there's all these things that pop up where if you pay attention to it, they did a world building, as Dutch was talking about. Those guys were D&D players. Look at the other game, Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium was a D&D game prior to being a video game. And you can tell when you play it. The world building is off the hook on that. It's incredible.
There's a lot of D&D on the show lately, Dutch.
Yeah, there is, yeah. I think I said D&D's pretty much built a lot of the games we know and love. Yeah. It has over the years. But like you mentioned, ACG, the sheer level of detail they've put into that was absolutely surprising when you go into first person. Like the fact that you can read the newspaper articles, it was like
there's people under the levels doing stuff. Like it's sorry, I get so excited about that because I can be Digital Foundry and I can be like, let's zoom in. And I'm friends with John. I love him on Digital Foundry, but to me, it gets the console war going. When people are like, how many pixels per, and you're just like, Jesus, do we care? Because I care more about this dance club that no one can see that's under the level. Why is that there? Like, I'm much more interested in the art. Why does a character look this way? How is scale done? Versus, the ambient occlusion isn't perfect. It's like, gee, I get it. I do, but that's momentary, man. The things that last with you is an NPC with a cool quest, not the pixels. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. And we become so connected to the technical because it's easy to argue. It's very easy to argue frame rate. If somebody says 59 versus 60, boom, 60 is more. And you're like, all right. But and those are easy to argue. And for people who aren't confident in their stance and in their position, that is easier for them to argue than the art, the Bob Ross of it all. Like, and Bob Ross is like one of my all-time like heroes. I don't know if you guys know who he is. The painter, Happy Trees.
How can you not know who he is?
Well, Van Dyke Brown.
Yeah, dude, he's like Happy Trees. There's no mistakes. There's just like little fun incidents or whatever. That level is what we need in games, and we're not there. Yeah. We're not that. We need that though. We've become classified to where we're talking about the paint. We're like, oh, well, what's the paint? It's like, is it important that it's Unity? Is it important that it's Unreal? How about the importance of what it looks like when it comes together as a game? How about that? Like, let's talk about the excellence of that. Because every fucking amazing writer in the world has used the word the. Are we going to talk about the word the for 80 hours? No, we're not. We're well past that. We're going to talk about what happens on the page and how everything comes together in a book. Sorry, I could go off for hours. I hate that shit. It fuels.
If you look at Psychonauts 2 now, right? It's not the best looking game, but it's so fucking fun.
Its caricatures are so unique. Yeah. It also is a little disturbing. The main character, the first chick you meet looks like she swallowed a football and then it didn't get all the way down her throat.
Just reminded us of Hey Arnold.
Oh, dude, yeah, Hey Arnold. Dude, you see these characters and you're like, and I was even telling people are like, Ratchet and Clank has, flesticles and a certain amount of pixicles on the, and you're just like, Jesus, I get it. But artistically, there is something in Psychonauts that Ratchet does not have. And that's okay. Yeah. Doesn't mean one's better than the other. And I know people who are very Christian Spicer. I was on Jeff Kanata's DLC podcast 2 weeks ago. Christian Spicer was like, it makes me uncomfortable. I don't like those. They get uncanny valley. I get uncomfortable when I see Psychonauts, which I agree. I can see that. Like, it's that askew. It's really weird, but I love it.
But the voice acting, and stuff is so good.
God, yeah. I was going to say the world itself.
Being told. Yeah, exactly.
The diversity, level design, gameplay elements, and
it's not the best looking game, but it just gets you right. You have to. Without spoiling, the level with the musicians, right, on stage.
Yeah.
How far do you go into the level, and the more the instruments they come into the music and stuff, it's so brilliantly done. And when I finished the game, I was like, "Fuck, what am I gonna play now? I have 500 games here behind me, and
you just want to play Psychonauts."
Like, yeah, it's crazy. The game is so well done. It's brilliant.
Do we have two newcomers here?
Yes,
Boxen and...
well, we have one. We have one more. Shom, welcome, brother.
Hello.
I wasn't sure whether or not you were going to make it tonight.
Well, it's the big 4-0 for me today, so I've just been
shit.
Busy.
Happy days.
So
it's game over.
You're hitting the 40s.
Game over. You're 40. It's over, man.
All downhill.
Happy birthday,
all
brother.
Downhill.
Happy birthday, Shom.
Happy birthday in the chat for Shomberlon hitting the big 4-0.
Happy birthday, Shom.
Grandpa.
Awesome. So I was going to say what you've been up to, but have you had a chance to relax today, or has it all been university work?
No, it's I had a bit of a chilled out day. I did a bit of uni work. This week is home study, so it's just this week I've got to do 5 assignments, and I could literally do them all in one day if I wanted, or I could do them over the course of the week. So
you're going to delay and do all 5. You're going to crunch them, right? Or are you not like that?
I didn't do Mondays. I did yesterday's. I've done today's. So tomorrow I've got to catch up.
I know that though.
My wife was kind of like, so you're going to do 2 today? I was like, yeah, I'll do 2 today. She was like, how many did you do? I said, I did 1. I said, it's my birthday. Don't pressure me.
Yeah. I'm getting older. Things are slower. It takes me a little longer. Come on, man.
Wait till you hit 40. See how you like it.
I have 4 years to go, Shom.
4 years
Live
to
it.
go.
Live the dream for those 4 years.
Yeah.
I woke up, I was slow, I creaked, I couldn't taste anything.
Are you sure that's not COVID?
Yeah, I was just going to say. We were just getting to the point where I was going to be like, are you sure? Do you have a cough? Or
maybe in 4 years I have a beard like ACG and Drew, So,
dude, I came out of my mom with a beard. It was ridiculous, man. I was getting into like movie theaters at 13 and shit for R-rated movies. Like, I had a beard young. I had to learn. I was afraid of razors, strangely enough. Very afraid. I was deathly afraid.
Really?
Yeah, when I was growing up, because, you see people get, like, in movies, slit, and I didn't know a safety razor. I mean, dude, I was that young where logic wasn't even ready.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't 14, I was 9. And my mom was like, dude, you look like the youngest homeless person who's 40 ever. Like, you just look weird. I look like somebody from Psychonauts. So, no lie, my dad, he's like, dude, it's not scary. And I'm like, man, I was so, because I saw people cut themselves too, right? You'd see people cut themselves with a safety razor even. I was so deathly afraid of it.
Well,
So
the original
it was
name, of
scraggly and
course,
shit.
is the Cutthroat. That's what it was
Yeah,
named.
yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. Yeah, I had a beard at a young age. Like, I've been lucky. I know some people who can't patch them in even at 40. They have like the one side.
Beth, we're gonna grow them.
No.
Real big beard. You just end up looking like me. Just
no
hair on the top and loads of hair here.
The chest is all hairy and shit.
Just matted all together.
You look like Pierce Brosnan. You're like, sup? I got the chest hair at least.
I got it in my ass.
Dear me. But we'll get into an actual topic now. First of all, you've probably heard quite a few perspectives across the week of what has went on with Horizon Forbidden West and the initial decision to charge. Well, first of all, initial decision to not charge and provide a free upgrade to Horizon, which was then backtracked on, and then they added the next gen fee, the $10 upgrade fee, but it wasn't. It was a weird mix. Unlike others like Ghost of Tsushima, where you'd pay the extra to get that upgrade, with Horizon it was either buy an $80 deluxe version to get the upgraded version or get both copies, or you had to buy the game twice. There was no upgrade path from PS4 to PS5. Now they reversed that decision due to backlash, rightly so. Primarily on the front that they did say originally it was going to be free, and of course now you can upgrade from PS4 to PS5 without that fee. Going forward, of course, and this is where it changes a little bit more, every cross-gen game going forward from PlayStation will have a $10 fee. Now, first of all, ACG, when you seen the kickoffs originally after they promised that free upgrade and then decided to put this really strange non-upgrade path / the only way you can get the upgrade is to buy an $80 version, what did you make of that? What was going through your head when you seen this all unfolding?
Well, dude, it's weird because when you look at Sony, there were rumors they were going to release the PS5 a year prior to when it actually got released. And yet the PS5 has continually had issues of all kinds, whether it be the SSD, finally NVMe just finally getting authorized. Their upgrade paths are screwed. They're like, we have no generations than we do. They said many games weren't even going to be on the PS4, and then we find out there were PS4 versions the entire time. I just feel that they weren't ready for they felt the gamers were going to want to move forward that full generation. They couldn't have prepared for COVID. Nobody can.
Yeah.
They couldn't have prepared for these things, and they're still doing quite well. But they don't. Their OS is not great. They've got issues. So does Microsoft. But talking in Sony in particular, they have particular issues. And Microsoft immediately hit when they announced the Switch. Microsoft was like, "Smart delivery. It just works." It's like, yeah, we get it. We get it. It's funny, and it's true. But I just think it's a company that mismanaged. Not even mismanaged. They went in with a particular plan that probably would have worked in the past in some ways by pushing everybody to the next hotness. It's not working, and they promised something, then they forgot they promised it, which is really weird because if you do go look back at what Jim said, he was pretty clear on some of these, not requiring upgrade money paths.
Yeah.
I just think it's Sony coming to grips. People are so accustomed to thinking Sony's been perfect. Sony's never been perfect. I can tell you some fucking stories. Like, I hate... Sony's never been saving babies from floods. I don't know where gamers got that, but they're like, oh, like Simba and Lion King. It's like Sony has the same issues everybody else does, but people have glossed them over. This time, we just happen to have more YouTubers like yourself, myself doing videos, so you hear about it, you see it, blah, blah, blah. It's just them hitting those bumps in the road. I'm not exactly like they're terrible. I think it was stupid.
Yeah.
But they are reversing it. I don't care about one. So I'm a person who does not believe in having it two ways. And you'll hear me talk about it in reviews all the time. You cannot ever tell me that they will not know moving forward from this point what the reaction will be if they try it again. So if they do, I will ultimately, then you will hear me hold them accountable in many ways. Like, there'll be videos, there'll be like, this is completely unacceptable. But this time they looked at it, they listened. It was stupid to do. I want to see what happens with the next 3 or 4. That's what's more important to me, because this one's been fixed. I want to see the pattern and how that's established, because if it's established and they go forward and they try it again, then I think there's a cynicism and a planned ignorance that they expect from their audience that the audience needs to push back on. And Sony fans are belligerent on not pushing back on Sony. They always have been. As somebody who's liked Sony and disliked them, there's always been that weird fascination with them. And I think that people need to get over it. They're not saving you money. In fact, they're asking for your money. In what world do you get to ask for money and then just say, whoops, sorry, we didn't deliver shit?
Yep.
But thanks for your money.
Didn't they already say that because you said you want to see what they do with the next 3-4 games? They said that every game will have that $10 upgrade fee going forward. So they will pull that off with all the next games. So
another thing that obviously based on that as well is the note that, of course, and this is another thing, unfortunately, having to backtrack, and again, COVID will have played a part, but at the same time, it's then what would be a lie, because we know how game development works now, and anybody who doesn't know how game development itself, the basics of game development, when you're at stage 1 of creating the game, you need to know what platforms you're creating that game for. So to come out like Sony did and originally say, we believe in generations, but it's only going to be on PlayStation 5, and then all of a sudden the games are starting to rock out back PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4. And then saying, okay, well, all games going forward are going to be not only cross-gen, or at least that's what pretty much they're hinting at here, cross-gen titles with an upgrade path. Now, you don't come out and say all games going forward on PlayStation are going to have an upgrade path without knowing that you're going to be pretty much pumping out cross-gen games for the foreseeable future, and nothing's going to be exclusively next-gen. Again, the Ratchet and Clank thing, we're pretty much expecting at some point in time, just unfortunately due to the should we say, historic tendencies over this last 12 months of saying that something's next-gen only and then it appears on PlayStation 4. I'm expecting things like that to just appear on the previous gen, like Miles Morales, like Gran Turismo, everything like that. Haven't then seen other developers come out and say, right, well, we're going to kind of capitalize on this. No fee for next gen. And that's not just Microsoft, but third-party developers. No fee for next gen upgrades, you just get them. And then, again, you've got the defense of it. For some reason, I don't know why you would defend paying more money. This is what we always try to go against. Why you would never defend paying more money or try to justify it. Development costs $10 isn't going to justify the extra work putting into add DualSense support. That's not going to $10 isn't going to make a blind bit of difference. Like $10 is in the grand scheme of things, it isn't going to make any difference to the developer. They're not going to see half of that because it goes into distribution and all of the build up and the advertisement and all that stuff. By the time they get their hands on it, it's not even seeing it. And half the time, the developers don't have that choice. It's not going to the developers. And as we noticed with, I think Deathloop isn't even $70. I think Deathloop's cheaper because it's not specifically by them. It's a third party, so they didn't get it forced. But Returnal wasn't down to the developers how much that cost. Returnal, that was a Sony decision. So that's not going to the developers, that's going into Sony. So defending it's a bit of a strange one. Archimedes, I know I can hear you itching to say something. So what's your thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's Sony right now. The thing really is, ACG hit a lot of things on or nails on the head here. It's ridiculous to defend that kind of stuff. We've seen all the arguments out there, like we need to support the developers and development costs go up and so on and so forth. Every of these publishers is making each and every quarter record-breaking revenue. I can't remember the last time when I have read a report that Sony's revenue went down on a quarter-to-quarter basis. So that's ridiculous that we have to pay for that, especially considering how these games are developed these days. You could argue in between the generation PS3 and PS4 that there was really extra effort to bring games over from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4 because they were built on a completely different architecture.
Yeah.
Now with the x86 architecture, it's literally like in every PC game, just a flip of a setting. Yeah, you change your details from medium to maximum, and that's it.
Yep.
There is really not any major effort to bring a game over from PS5 to PS4 and vice versa. That's just not how it works. Yeah, you could argue with a couple of things like the 3D audio or the haptic feedback, but let's be real here. That's not justifying $10.
No.
That's the one thing about the general price hike. Why I have that problem. I don't see a reason why I should pay more for those games. And the way how Sony is communicating right now is really not okay. A lot of you guys have already said it. First saying we believe in generations, then completely backtracking on it, promising free upgrades and charging for it. By the way, I don't think they have really fixed it. I've seen a lot of people giving credit to Sony that they fixed that now. They didn't really do that, because when you are on the PS5, you still have to pay the 80 euro version, 80 euros for the game. I cannot buy the PS4 version on my PS5. I have to have an actual PS4 to buy the PS4 version, which is then 70 euros, and I can upgrade that for free. So that's ridiculous. They haven't fixed the problem for me. I still have to pay 80 euros for that game. So I'm really confused. But there's one thing that ACG said, which is probably the thing. Sony went into this generation doing business as usual. I don't think that they anticipated not just, of course, the pandemic, but I don't know whether they have not seen coming how much has changed in the gaming industry when gamers look at value in gaming right now. I mean, look at people always bring up Gamepass, but you can also look at things like Steam or the Epic Store or stuff like that, where games are really cheap. People look for value in gaming these days. And Sony kind of went in like, we're doing business as usual. We don't really focus on backward compatibility. That's something in the console space that is just not usually done. Then we don't look at how can we offer more value. We just look at how far can we go and squeeze the money out. That's kind of their strategy. Yeah. And they just thought, okay, it's okay for us to have the great first-party exclusives, the well-known brand globally. They are still especially here in Europe and other regions, the better-known brand, than Xbox. But the thing really is here, Sony is, kind of stuck in the past here, and a lot of things have changed over the course of the last 2-3 years. People look for value in gaming. People want stuff like backward compatibility. They want things like a subscription service when they see how much value there is. They want that stuff, and I don't know whether Sony can stay on that same course, because like ACG said, we are now in the beginning, and we kind of give them a pass, especially if they sort of backtrack on things like that. But if they continue down that road, it can turn really fast on them, even with the bigger media sites and bigger channels. We have seen that with Cyberpunk and CD Projekt Red. They were everybody's darling. They were the studio that can't do anything wrong. Everybody loved them, and would have bought anything blindly from them. And one misstep, and their reputation is gone, and that can happen so quickly. And I think Sony has to be really careful here with their next steps, because they are now in that position where if they don't pay attention to how they communicate, how they are transparent, and how they deliver value to gamers, it can easily turn on them.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add to that as well is, I think Jim Ryan, as we all know, Jim Ryan isn't your Phil Spencer leader. He's not your gamer. He's not a gamer and a leader at the same time. Jim Ryan is very much a businessman. Always has been, always will be. Like, he's so, I wouldn't say out of touch with gaming, but he's not Sean Layden. Like, they're complete opposite sides of the scale. Jim Ryan has been brought in to make that business the best it can be.
Yeah, they should just let Herman Holst take the lead here and be the man up front on camera. He's way more authentic than Jim.
But he's a gamer, and you have to portray coming on stage as a businessman and introducing games. The enthusiasm isn't the same there as well. But it's also they've got to have a fine balance between this is a business, but at the same time we also have consumers that are very, very much gamers. Like, they love the stuff that we put out, so we've got to put that out in the right way as well. We've got to respect them. We've got to respect our community, and I think that's one thing that at times they don't do, is respect their own fan base. And I think they just slightly take advantage of them because they're running it too much like a business and not kind of looking at it from the consumer perspective. Like, yes, you're in there to make money, 100%. If you didn't make money, of course, you wouldn't be doing that in the first place. But you've got to find that fine balance between consumerism and business. And that's a problem that Sony are having at the moment. Where do we draw that line where consumerism is being overlooked and business is the primary objective?
But they are looking in it, right? Let's be honest. I mean, they wanted to make the games like Horizon Forbidden West, Gran Turismo, God of War, you name them.
Brilliant games.
They were initially planned to be PS5 only, right? We all know it. They wanted to give up the PS4. Then there was this the COVID stuff, and you have this chip shortages. So
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. That it's an afterthought. Like, I don't think that is the case. Because when you look at time-to-time sales, the PS5 has more consoles in the market than the PS4 had at the same time.
Yeah,
but if you look at the total now, I mean, there's what is it? 120 million PS4 and 10 million PS5.
Yeah.
What if there was no chip shortages? Maybe there would have been 50 million PS5. We don't know. So the initial plan was to go full PS5. You know, make the games €80 or $1 or whatever money you have. Doesn't matter. But then COVID came, the chip shortages came, the scalpers came, you name it. And I think, and that's something, if you read the messages from Sony, I think they went back on the decision to become PS5 only and, downgrade the games to make it PS4 as well, if it's possible.
Yeah, it's quite the opposite again with game development, and unfortunately with game development you have to have the initial development route in place in the first place, and thankfully on this occasion we're not talking PS3 to PS4, because PS3's architecture was different to PS4. PS4 onwards you're going back into PC architecture, x86, etc. So it makes development for across generations far easier to manage. If you're going back onto the PS3, it would be nigh on impossibility to try and get something on PS4 to run back on PS3 without doing a full port. Their decisions to make them games PS5 only weren't sheerly down to the fact that they couldn't make them on PS4. They were making them on PS4 and chose to market them as PS5 only.
Exactly.
Yep. So,
and I think that's the downfall. I mean, if they had like 50 million consoles in the stores now, they would have been sold. And then Sony could have said, we sell you this game for €80, it's only on PS5.
Yeah.
But now, there's like 10 million PS5, instead of 50 or 60 million maybe. And you have to have the audience to buy your game, right? So, it's not on PS5. So you have to get back to your audience on PS4, which is the biggest community there is. Yeah. You can't deny that. And
no, of course.
And
again,
Xbox
it's a business at the end of the day. They need as many people playing that game as they possibly can to sell units. That was it. But exactly. It's just the only thing. It's like I say, it's just the fact that they mentioned it at first and then went back on it. You don't come out and say this game is only playable on PS5 if you know for a fact that that game runs on PlayStation 4, because stuff like that's going to come back to bite you in the arse, and it is.
Of course. Well, Ratchet & Clank is not coming to PS4.
Yet.
You say that now.
Yeah.
Now, if they do that, Shomberlon, then they shoot themselves in the foot, because you make yourself unbelievable. First, you say we have to use the super SSD to create those Rift portals, right? Now we see them in Psychonauts, but that's okay. That's something else, maybe. But if they launch it on PS4 now, then Jim Ryan has to stop, because it's his position. His position
is they'll tell you whatever they need to tell you in order for you to buy their product. That's what it is. I mean, look at Godfall. We were told. I know it's not Sony, it's Gearbox, but they said that we're proud to bring this to you. It's only possible via the PS5 SSD, and then 3 or 4 months later, it's later this year, it's coming to.
Yeah, it was a stealth drop. It was a stealth drop on the PlayStation.
It's one of those things. It's like, just because they say it doesn't mean to say that that's true. And it's the same for Microsoft. Microsoft is littered
same for anybody.
through thingies. Like,
but
Phil Spencer isn't your friend. He will tell you what he needs to tell you in order to get things.
Of course.
And the thing is that he looks so good now is because of the monumental cock up that was the Xbox One. Exactly. I'm not saying Phil Spencer's a bad guy, but he's had to enact a lot of things that maybe they wouldn't have done had the console been
the Don Metric
deemed
guy,
as successful. No, Phil Spencer.
No, he said it's because of Don.
Yeah, because of Don Metric. But if the Xbox One had been as successful as the 360, then I don't think we would see as much. I mean, you could say, would we have seen a Game Pass? Maybe not. Or was that a Phil Spencer thing that he always wanted to do?
That was prior. That was prior. Just so you know. That was actually the original idea, was to put that on consoles sold by internet providers.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The idea for streaming is not new. There's people at Microsoft who will. I mean, you can go watch their YouTube. They talk about this years ago. The idea for a Game Pass at the price we're seeing, the idea for all this is absolutely not platform specific. They would have pushed this even if they left gaming. Microsoft would have tried to push it on, let's say, Comcast routers, Charter. They've done multiple little beta tests on various different things, Game Pass as well as streaming. That is for sure Microsoft's plan. It's Microsoft's plan because 365 is Microsoft's plan, which is their Office 365.
Yeah.
Their plans were prior to that.
Oh, 100%.
But did you guys hear when Phil Spencer was talking to, I'm sorry, I don't want to mess up his name. The CEO said,
Satya Nadella.
Did you? I love that that he asked him. He was like, Phil, why should we care about Xbox? Why shouldn't I sell it? And Phil took an entire week to come up with the answer. And I thought that was pretty cool because they're all businessmen, but there is a difference between somebody who wants gaming to work and thinks it can versus somebody who is just there for business. And it was cool to have him say it took a week, and checking in with other people. I know that is true. Like, that is an actual story. That is like a true story where it happened. It was like, let's figure out if it is it something we want to move forward? And Microsoft's done a pretty good job with some of their people. Don notwithstanding, if you look at some of the people, they've actually consistently not matched hardware with the people, even though they've had good people. There's been issues with hardware, and then they had a bad person. And Xbox One's hardware was okay, but there was obviously issues there with them wanting to push the Kinect, which I don't blame Microsoft for, because it appeared like that was going to work.
Everybody wanted it.
Oh, dude, that thing was the top-selling peripheral for years. I mean, people were like, "This thing is gonna
still
sell
holds
like
the record, doesn't it?"
Yeah, still. Well, I'm pretty sure
selling.
that just got beat actually by something. I don't know if it was. It wasn't PSVR, but anyway, it's just cool to hear all these stories. But in the end, none of us will ever know exactly what's going on.
I still missed it.
I'm glad that Microsoft and Sony have that competitor, because Nintendo's so busy smoking dope. We never know what Nintendo's doing, right? No. Nintendo's just like puff, let's hold on to it. And you're like, dude, seriously, exhale. Because they don't even know what online is. They're like, don't you have a cell phone? They're like Blizzard. They're with Diablo. They're like, don't you guys have phones? And you're all, dude, what world do you live in, man? What's going on? The Switch comes out. It's got all these kind of fucking issues. And they still do well, but they're not they don't push Sony. And we do need somebody to push Sony. It was Sega at one time. Now it's not. And Sega and Nintendo were pushing each other. Sega left. I love that those guys push each other because I do want to see competition in the space. It's just like AMD doing well pushes Intel. That is what gamers, anybody needs.
Yeah.
Sega does what
Competition
Nintendo
is what drives the industry forward, and that's where we all benefit in the end. That is,
we all benefit from that.
Yeah,
Sega
I mean, you've got
does what Nintendo.
you've got
Sega and
got
Nintendo started the console wars. They were just lethal with each other.
Sega does what Sega does what Nintendo don't. Or, oh my God, it was such a rough time to be a kid, man. So many.
I was oblivious to it. I was lucky and probably privileged enough to have both the three.
I did too, but I didn't go to school
so
and listen to people.
Me too.
I never had that. I didn't really understand what the console wars were until like the PlayStation, the first PlayStation. But yeah, so yeah.
I mean, that were actual console wars where the companies really tried to push each other out of the business. Yeah, that were console wars. That was
Sega got kicked out of Toys R Us for a while.
Yeah,
by Nintendo.
It was like blood
Nintendo's
feud,
like
isn't it?
Exactly, man.
That was console war. That's what we have today. That is just man-childs arguing over plastic. Yeah, that's not console wars. That's just petty. But that were actual console
it's
wars.
good. It's good to have competition. I mean, you've got Battlefield and Call of Duty. The Call of Duty now have Levolution.
Yeah.
6 or 7 years. That isn't it?
8 years.
8 years. Oh
8 years?
my God!
8 years for what?
Levolution and Battlefield 4.
Battlefield 4, Levolution.
I don't even remember what that is.
It's where they
were advertising it that you can.
Well, you can't all answer. Go ahead, Dutch. What were you saying?
Yeah.
Sorry.
All the level kind of implodes essentially. So for instance, the big giant skyscrapers will fall down, or a ship crashes in the middle of the. Basically, the level changes as the match goes on, and Call of Duty is now essentially bringing that into the next Call of Duty. And they're like hyping it up like it's some kind of new thing. Like, look at this! Look, isn't this fancy? And everyone's like, it's just Levolution. That's what we had in Battlefield 4.
I think they might even. Well, it's even in the next one, isn't it? You've got like the tornado and whatnot.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to that new Battlefield. It's a whole nother topic entirely, but yeah, it's competition is great. Like you mentioned, it all boils down to competition. You need competition in there. We want, for instance, on Forza Horizon, Forza Horizon doesn't have competition because there is. I mean, The Crew was the closest you'll get to it, and that didn't do well. Like critically, it's not done well at all, and that's the closest you'll get to an open world racer that competes with Forza Horizon. But also because Forza Horizon is just so good.
Need for Speed Unlimited is coming out.
Is that the same?
And that's
thing?
the open
world?
Yeah. Need for Speed Unlimited 1 and 2. I think they were unlimited. Were the ones based in Hawaii that were open world. They were fully open world. You could drive to other stores, and it was crazy. It was before Forza Horizon. So, I'm hoping to see other companies do it. But yeah, it's hard to compete with Horizon.
Like Burnout, or not?
Kind of. Burnout Paradise is a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah. That's way more arcade than these two.
But yeah, but then you've got the new Forza Motorsport building from the ground up, trying to compete again with Gran Turismo on the sim level. Now, of course, even though on a critical level, Forza Motorsport was higher than the previous GT, on the sim level, GT was better than the previous Motorsport, and there was no contest. But the competition is there. The competition's there so greatly, in fact, that Microsoft said, okay, listen, we're building this game from the ground up. We're going to have to reimagine this game because the sim racers think this is shit. Like, our game is not good enough as a sim racer to be classed as a sim racer, so we need to do this thing again. GT, on the other hand, have always had that sim racing down perfectly, so they just need to improve and get better than their previous title, because GT Sport wasn't critically acclaimed. It wasn't as good as it could ever be. But then again, like you mentioned, on the shooter side, you've got your Call of Duties and your Battlefields, so competition is there. It is rife, and now it's great to see Psychonauts jumping into the platform, and Ratchet and Clank, which could have been up there for pretty much solely hanging on to that platforming game of the year. Psychonauts has just come out of the blue, and I think everybody's completely underestimated it, including people that were excited for it, just how good that game is. and that game is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
To add
ACG, go on.
one thing before we
Yeah.
move on,
Yep.
I don't want to dispel the Gran Turismo mystique,
Yeah.
but I'll just say that I have heard that it's far less Gran Turismo that Forza is fighting against versus Forza Horizon. It's its own competition. And I think that bears out. Forza originally was motorsport and all this. Horizon came out and people were like 30 FPS. It looks good, but it's open world. It doesn't feel the same. And as Forza Horizon has continued, not only have motorheads got into it, but also casual fans.
Yep.
And it's not just GT sells well, but I can tell you that most people, especially with PCs, look outside of both of those games.
Oh, God, yeah.
And what's going on is Microsoft currently is the only company releasing on PC and console. And so it's far less about GT and comparing just to them on one platform versus looking at their own competition and saying, listen, Forza Horizon is offering people some adjustments to handling. And in fact, Forza Horizon, the last one, had a lot of adjustments. Whether you believe in the engine or not, a lot of people can't even tell. You know, Dirt Rally would be the replacement, I think, for a lot of people, or an F1 game. But I think that for at least what I've heard is that it's actually more internal of the stepson has beat the son kind of thing, or the younger son has beat the
Just
and
trying to
what do
beat
you do?
themselves,
Yeah, which is fine. I'm not saying that there isn't, but if you look at platforms, there's actually something that Microsoft has that Sony doesn't currently, which is the multi-plat and going against a group that is completely different. Your Assetto Corsa, your titles that are completely beyond anything GT can really offer to a mainstream, which is PCs, which is a massive market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be
I just
great.
wanted to bring that up.
No, it'd be great to see. To be honest, I can see GT coming to PC, but then, like you mentioned, that is a whole nother ballpark.
You're
in terms
biting
of
off
sim
a
races.
big sandwich if you want to jump into that group.
Because
VR,
the PC sim racers will be brutal to review that stuff.
Yeah, dude, can you imagine that? Like, I'm not saying I don't want it, but you better bring your A game, because if you've ever met somebody who's deep into like PC racing, it's another language. You have race car drivers playing it.
Yeah.
Race car drivers are like, I'm training in a sim on the PC. And you're just like, ooh, that's another level.
Yeah. Well, we've got one of our other panel members who isn't here the night because he's working, or just got home from work. He started a channel. He's a sim racer, and he was very high up on leaderboards for a number of years on
cool.
sim races across the board. But he has his own channel now. Again, another one we've got over 100 subscribers now. But racing from home, and he's exactly the same. Like he knows, he loves Assetto Corsa Competition. Like that is the sim of all three sims so far to him. Of the big sims, should we say, because of course on PC there is an absolute multitude of many different kinds of car simulating games, drift games specifically. There's so many, like there's games built specifically for sim drifting that you can't do the same as you would do on any other sim
difficult to
racing
get
game.
that engine right.
Yeah. But yeah, it is again. But the competition, like as you mentioned, GT is against GT. Like the only people they're competing against are really themselves. They have to one up their own previous effort, and as long as they're doing that, they're happy. Whereas, like you mentioned, Microsoft jumping onto PC day one with Forza Motorsport have a lot of competition on the PC front, and if they don't get it right on PC, they will know about it.
God, yeah.
Yeah. We do go straight, actually, after this slightly Sony topic, we will go straight into the next Sony topic, and that is the showcase, which is live tomorrow for ourselves in Europe. That is 9 p.m. for the UK, 10 p.m. for the rest of Europe. First of all, ACG, what are you hoping to see come out of this showcase? I know it has been a long time coming. We have been waiting quite a while to see what the plans are for Sony and PlayStation for the next 12, 18 months at least. What have you got cooking up? What have you got coming? Show us what we can expect from the platform and why we should invest in this platform going forward. Is is really the question. Is what can you get the rest of the people excited for coming up? We know the normal big hitters. We expect to see God of War Ragnarok. That is pretty much a certainty. If we don't see Ragnarok now, there is something. So there is even a slight gameplay trailer at this point in time with it meant to be releasing next year. Something other than just a title screen. If we don't see something now, there is something wrong. But what do you hope to see from PlayStation out of this showcase tomorrow?
So this is a perfect place for me to say other people can talk, because I am not a huge event person. I'm going to stream it, but I don't believe the events at all anymore. Right. So when I do, and especially Sony, who tried to say Last Guardian was going to be on the PS3, like it was a full generation late. And Microsoft's done the same. Yeah. So I will just say, I hope to be excited, but excited in a real way, see real stuff that isn't Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk's burned a lot of people because they had a fake beta, which wasn't even in the game, which I think now people will hinge. You'll always be like, yeah, it's real, but is it real? Is that really what? So there's all these question marks. I'm just going to say I'm excited to check whatever they do. I'm a God of War fan, but I'm not, I'm more of a Chris Judge fan, the actor. That dude from Stargate, the guy who voiced Kratos, I'm more of a voice actor fan. So can't wait to see him doing stuff. But I'll let the other people talk, because I don't believe them. And it's not even because I think they're lying. It's just because shit changes. Companies evaporate, all the time. They go out of business, or some horrible thing happens. And so unless they say something is out in 3 months, if we see, that is what I would love to see, right? Wouldn't that be awesome if they're like, I don't know what game it would be, but if they're like, blah, 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 here it is, it's out in 3 months, then it's close, and what you're seeing is probably what you're going to get. But I think I'll let everybody else go for that one.
Fair enough. Archimedes, you're the only man here directly with a PlayStation 5 currently. You don't need to be convinced to buy one yet.
Well, I've got one.
You've got one as well, of course.
See, I'm not alone.
But you don't need to be convinced to buy one. So as a consumer who has one right now, you've played pretty much most of the major releases that are out for it.
Yeah.
What are you hoping to see kind of from PlayStation that isn't just going to then essentially have you with it as Xbox as your primary platform, let's say? Have the PlayStation gathering dust over the next 12 months? What do you want them to show you that will convince you to say invest in more games and in more titles?
Okay, what I want them to show, or what I think they will show? Because those are two different things.
What you want and hope, first of all.
Okay, what I want, obviously, there are a couple of things that many want. I want to see God of War. I want to see a bit more from Horizon Forbidden West. Actually, what I really want is that Sony did really well during the early PS4 days is to sell me that hope for a fantastic generation. Sony was always great in announcing games relatively early, sometimes with gameplay, sometimes just with a teaser trailer. But for instance, they have shown God of War very early with vertical slice, short piece, but we have seen how the game looks, how it will feel, what it does new. And this is what Sony has always done really well. And Xbox has taken that page out of their playbook. They have laid out now a proper roadmap, what we can expect over the course of the next 2-3 years. Yeah, they have announced like 21 first-party games as of today. Yeah, so, and we only know about 3 first-party games from the PlayStation studios, and that's God of War, Gran Turismo, and Horizon Forbidden West. Yeah, everything else is still on the wraps, and so I want them to do that. I want them to lay out a proper roadmap. What can we expect over the course of the next 2-3 years, like they have done in the past, even if it's just a small teaser. Yeah, I want to know, does Naughty Dog work on a new Uncharted game, or do they bring up a new IP? We have both rumors out there. I want to know these kind of things. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Realistically, we have to look at how they announced the game, the game showcase. It's 40 minutes long. and they literally said it will focus on games coming this year and beyond. So when you look at what is coming over the course of this year and now probably early next year, that will probably take already up a good chunk of the first 20, 30 minutes of the show. Yeah. So I don't think that that they will pull out like 3, 4, 5 major announcements. There will hopefully be one at the end. But realistically, they will probably show a little bit of Deathloop, Ghostwire Tokyo, for Horizon Zero Dawn, and Gran Turismo. That's probably what they will focus on. And then, if we're lucky, we get a little teaser with God of War. But unfortunately, Chris is not dropped out of the podcast. But he could elaborate on that a little bit better to show these games properly. God of War and so on. Sony usually built these vertical slices, and they take a lot of development time out of the actual development process, because the developers have to actually put the game together, compile it, make certain bug fixes, make sure that it runs stable. It just takes time out of the actual development process. And time is right now, with the pandemic still going on, a lot of people still have to work from home. It's really valuable. Working from home, we all know it's just not as efficient as it is in the office. That's why we've seen all the delays. Yeah, that is just the case. And so I don't know whether Sony is or was able to take out really the time of the development schedule to build the vertical slices to present it properly. So I assume they will have a lot of more CGI trailer kind of things. But I hope I'm wrong. Usually Sony did it really well. Again, that's what I really liked about their shows. We always have seen gameplay.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see.
Awesome stuff. Shom, what do you hope that they show, and what do you think realistically will end up being shown?
I want to see that cat game.
Stray, yeah.
I really do. I said that when when we did the event last year that Sony did. I was like, I really like the look of that cat game. It just looks really chilled out. But no, seriously, I think we are going to get a God of War in some form. From just the amount of rumors from, I say, high-profile people, but we know the people that normally have something, not the insiders, the Sony insiders that will say every month that there's an event coming until they get it right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much guaranteed. No, I'm really looking forward to it. There's one thing I am a little bit of a fraud at, is I haven't completed the first God of War.
Okay.
It just came out at a really bad time for me. It came out just before I started my master's dissertation. And then after my master's dissertation, I moved to the arse end of nowhere in Scotland.
Right.
And then just other things came out. So I got like 5 hours into it. And then now I tried to pick it up a couple of months ago and I just didn't have a clue where I was. So I am going to have to start again, but I've decided if I'm going to start again, I might as well do it when I get a PS5 and I can have all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
So I'll do that before jumping into the next one. Going forward, I don't really know what else they could show. Other than that, I've heard the rumor of a possible Resistance re-emergence. I hope it's a new game rather than a remake of the trilogy. Yeah. I really, really enjoyed
just reboot the series from scratch is what you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the whole controversy. I think it was Resistance 2, where they had a bit in Manchester Cathedral and they didn't ask permission, and had kicked off a big stink of that. But I lived in Manchester at the time, so I kind of knew the area and everything really, really well, and just found it funny how out of shape people were getting over it. But it's a good franchise, and it's not supposed to be any killer of an Xbox game or a thing. It's just a solid shooter. It's a really good solid shooter. Trying to think what else PlayStation wise. I just want maybe something new, maybe something completely unexpected that You know, like the kind of thing when God of War was first revealed again, you know, the new God of War, and people were like, holy crap, that looks amazing. I want that again. And it could be a new franchise. It could be a reimagining of another franchise that they have. I heard a lot of people going on about Jack and Dexter. I'd like that, actually. I remember loving those games. Maybe what is it? Is it Siphon Filter?
Yes, Siphon Filter.
Yeah, Siphon Filter. Maybe a reimagining of that. I mean, God, we need a stealth genre. I don't care who brings it. We need a stealth genre.
Someone has
Metal Gear is died, and again, that's another thing that's being touted about a Metal Gear remake. I think that's for me. Metal Gear is had its time. I think maybe something else needs to come along. If it's not a Hideo Kojima Metal Gear, then what's really the point? They tried it with Resistance, and that was not very good, to be polite. So yeah, maybe I mean, as you know, I love the stealth genre. So maybe a Siphon Filter or another stealth thing, but it's hard to tell because I've not got too much into the PlayStation just yet.
I was going to say, is there anything that would convince you then or anything that you think, if they showed, would convince you to upgrade from PlayStation 4 Pro to a PlayStation 5?
Not at the moment, simply because A, finances, but B, I'm holding out for.
If that wasn't a barrier, if
that wasn't a barrier, to be honest, I'm holding out for a funky limited edition, maybe like a God of War or something, funky. Hopefully a bit smaller.
A lot of people will be thinking that these days. Because of with the Halo Series X. There's like, I've got one now.
I'm really annoyed with the Halo thing. I'm upset with it because it just kind of feels a bit of a kick in the teeth for day one adopters. To announce it less, and then maybe that's what they planned on doing if Halo had launched. Yeah, maybe it was going to be a launch limited edition one, but it kind of annoys me that I can't afford to fork out for another Series X, and it's a nice looking machine. It is a funky one. I do like well done machines. But yeah, I think for me personally, I think I'm just waiting for a decent looking PlayStation. Yeah, that's my reason to get into it. Yeah, because everybody knows Sony are good for the games.
The thing is, like they did Xbox as well. They did a good job at unveiling this Halo limited edition, and it looks pretty, but they didn't go into the details on the box itself or what it is that makes it limited. Now, do people know, because they didn't mention it, that it does actually have a Halo startup noise? Like when you press it on, turn it on, it isn't just your standard boot up. That isn't like that's something that they didn't mention. They, of course,
that would be awesome to have the startup music be the Halo.
That would be awesome. I mean, but they have, like, when you press the button, that's the Halo noise that happens again. Like, it isn't just your standard turn on but noise for the Xbox. They have that, but they didn't mention it. Then they didn't mention the fact that the stars on the console is actually the constellation from Zeta Halo. When you look up, like, it's the details they've actually put into it, and then all of the little intricacies that they put into that thing. They just went, oh look, these are an Xbox, and then didn't explain why it was so special or what it is that they've done.
Can you imagine the designer of it screaming at the TV?
I've spent so long doing this.
I just did that. Yeah, individually placed stars,
and you didn't notice. No one knows. But yeah, thanks for that. But there's so much. Yeah, go on.
How come no one mentions the rumor that SOCOM strike?
SOCOM would be awesome.
I think it's a rumor that's been about for like 7 or 8 years. I heard that like at the beginning of the PS4.
The thing is, I think if it's true, it's too far off for them to show it off already.
I'll buy it then. Seriously, if they release SOCOM Strike, I saw it's called SOCOM Strike. I don't know why, but if they release it, I'll buy a PS5.
So that's seriously what would get you. That's what would get you if they release the SOCOM.
If they show tomorrow SOCOM Strike or whatever it's called, at least a new SOCOM, or like Shomberlon said, the Siphon Filter, that was a great game as well.
Yeah,
I'll buy it. Seriously.
God
I'll buy
damn,
it.
some of you guys got serious cash rolling around in your fucking pockets, man. Jesus.
I know.
I've
I
never
know.
bought a console for one game. I never, ever would.
No, it's not one game, ACG. To be honest, I had a PS4 myself. The one I use now is for my brother. I borrowed it, and to be honest, the Xbox is my main console. For third-party games and exclusives. But for the PlayStation, I Uncharted, is a game I really, really like. I like Drive Club, one of the few people I really liked. I still am hoping for the new Dark Cloud, the RPG.
God, Dark Cloud 3. Whoo!
Yeah.
I'd be all over that.
Yeah, same for me. And there's one game, that could be on any system. If Sega wants money, that's Skies of Arcadia. Could be anywhere. But
He's worse than me with Sam Fisher with
Skies,
stuff. Yeah, he is.
Skies of Arcadia would be awesome too. There's a lot of that
Yeah,
Sega stuff sitting around.
It's my favorite game of all time, but Sega apparently doesn't want money, but we don't know where it's coming. Shenmue 3 is crowdfunded, but on PlayStation. And if somebody is deciding to remaster it, remake it, make a sequel or prequel or whatever, if it's going to PlayStation, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
There's multiple games. It's not just one game, right? But at the moment, if I look at PlayStation 5 and what has PlayStation 5 to offer more than PlayStation 4 and the Xbox, is Ratchet & Clank. And that's not a game I will buy a complete system for.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, right? But if they come with SOCOM, if SOCOM, the new Uncharted, a new Dark Cloud, you name it, if those games are PS5 only games, I'll buy it.
I did want to probably put a cap on this, to talk about business for 1 second. One thing to probably understand is that normally events are done to sell consoles, and because consoles aren't being made at the speed in which Sony would like, you will see some adjustments of them saying, we're not going to show this because it makes no sense, because you're selling to a crowd that can't get your item. So I would, another reason why I go into these right now and I'm sort of tentative is because I don't think they're not working on stuff. I do believe that all the companies are. It's just right now, would you say, hey man, you need a PS5? And people are like, we already wanted one, jackass. Yeah. Another thing to remember is people are like, oh, how would it sell if there were a bunch of them? My personal opinion is, just my personal opinion, it's not right. But if you look at the psychology of collectors, just hearing you guys talk about Halo, which I could give a fuck about. I don't care if it looks like a toaster. All my systems are hidden. I don't at all care what they look like. I don't think it would have sold double if it had been available.
Yeah.
I actually do believe that the desire causes people to purchase. I need to be first. I need to own this thing. And then you get it and you're like, why did I buy this? I know multiple people who have a car, haven't driven it. Even prior to COVID, they just weren't driving it, including myself. I had a really nice car and I was like, what the fuck? It's just sitting there. I don't use it. I wanted it. So I think a lot of these games that we may want to see, hopefully Sony shows them, but I do think that there will be a couple that they're like, why should we bang this out? Sure, people will hate us, but it's like, we can only sell the channel isn't flooded at all. Remember when it was flooded with remember when Microsoft would be like, we sold this many. Sony would say we sold this many, and they'd be like, they're sold out. And somebody'd send a picture of Best Buy and there'd be a pile of them. That's not occurring right now. There's none of them.
Yep. None of them
so
anywhere.
these companies, if they're smart business-wise, they're looking and saying, I don't think you don't shoot your load before you go to the porn shoot, right? Makes no sense. Well, maybe you do once, but post-nut clarity and all. But looking at these kind of things, I think a lot of these companies are like, let's hold off and let's show some cool stuff and then leak out some of the other stuff as we go. And I don't mean leak as in to insiders. I mean leak as in to,
that's spot on. I've said that multiple times. It goes for both console manufacturers.
It goes for anybody who's using this architecture.
They will sell even throughout Christmas every console they can manufacture. It doesn't matter what they offer in terms of first-party games, what they announce, whatever. They will sell every console that they can manufacture will fly off the shelf. Okay. So yeah, obviously they are holding stuff back because at some point in the future, it will probably even last through 2020, the shortage of consoles and chips globally. But at some point, real competition comes in. When you can walk into the store and decide to get either one, then they need to fight for your wallet. At the moment, they don't.
Yeah,
but I agree, right? But Grand Theft Auto 5 was released with just a logo shop, right? Metroid Prime 4 is announced 4 years ago now, or 3 years. What was it? 2017, 2018. Metroid Prime 4, just a logo. People were hyped. Sony is master in doing that stuff, right? If they just put a logo, we are making a new SOCOM. I'm hyped. They are hyped. I can't see shit of the game, but I'm still hyped because it's a game. That's where you
right. But what we're doing is selling into a situation that's never existed in current modern electronics ever.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is these companies are looking and saying this has never occurred ever in the history of ever prior. So what do we do? And what I'm saying is it would be smart financially for that company to be able to sell you the system instead of saying it'll come out someday. And so what your desire is to be hyped. They will still do that. What I'm saying is instead of having 18 AAA games banging in at E3 and then saying, hope you can get a PS5 at someday. What I'm saying is they may, and I already know a couple games have been, delayed due to February only because they couldn't really sell to as many next-gen consoles as they wanted. So they're like, might as well polish it. So I'm just saying that these companies are looking into a situation that's never existed before, and they're like, why don't we do 7 and then do 7 at a later event? Plus, remember this, in the past years, Microsoft did their event, Sony's done their events, but they were never huge. They were never E3 size. Now we're getting to the point to where the internet is so easy that you not so easy, but you get my drift. They can hit play and they can show you their own event. Sony gets a huge number of people watching their events. So what I think a lot of times is they're going to do, 7, 8, and then they'll be like in February, hey man, like here's the hot sauce. Here's your ability to, here's a link to go buy this. Even Beyond Good and Evil, people thought that was gone. It's absolutely not gone. It's for sure not gone. It's just that these companies are looking and saying, shit's different, man. It's different. Like the people I know who work, because I came from Hewlett-Packard. That's where I worked. And the people who worked at Hewlett-Packard during high times, the business was so different than during the low time. I mean, every decision is thought of. That's one of the reasons why I'm always mad whenever I hear a PR guy mess up. And I'm like, seriously, you got to this point and no one told you this was a dumb thing to say? Because I've been in those meetings where that's gone over with a fine-tooth comb. Yeah. And my hope is they show a ton of stuff, but I'm just saying I don't want anybody thinking that they will. If they do, there's no better surprise. But I would rather have people be able to buy the fucking thing.
I get what you mean, right? But they have one event tomorrow. Well, and Xbox has been constantly going this year. They have to counter that.
Well, no, Sony has already done. So remember, Sony does their events every month. Sony has legitimately failed multiple times every single month during their Sony event to deliver anything substantial, to the point to where I don't even know if you remember that they were doing those. Every single month, Sony has their event.
Okay.
Every single month, Sony does a Twitch. I can't remember the name of it, but they have their Sony little 45-minute thing, and they have failed multiple times to get people excited.
Okay.
Are they doing it because they don't have games? No. What I'm saying is this event will be big, but I don't think it's going to. I'm just saying, if you're a businessman, you look at it and go, we got to hold some stuff back.
Yeah. Because
we can't sell. Why would you? I don't know, man. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, why would you if I hit every 3-pointer during practice and none during the game, who fucking cares? Right?
Yeah, but it's now due to the chip thing, right? They all come from China, But we all know that Germany is building their own factory now to be not
Taiwan has to,
and America is building one as well, right? Because it's a $1 chip, right? It's a $1 chip. It's being produced in China by one guy with 5 or 6 companies.
Are you joking?
No,
this is what I used to do. No, it's not $1 chip. Dude, no, Hynix alone here in my hometown, Hynix alone, like you're talking 9 months to 18 months minimum to start up a facility. Then you have fab cleaning. So your fabrication has to make sure that you have clean wafers. So Red Ring of Death was created by one single failed line. The Red Ring of Death, $3 billion was one failed line with bad solder points. A clean fab is required, and clean room fabrication to get everything working the way you want, to make sure that you don't have shit in your wafers when you're cooking them, all that kind of stuff. Dude, you don't just say that'll be ready 3 months from now. It can take 9-10 months. Additionally, those people can't. So if I say I'm going to build a company tomorrow here, those workers can't come because of COVID restrictions. Completely different situation than has ever occurred in the history of man. Industrial, aside from the plague, by the way. Like the plague is the only other time we've had a situation like this where you can't get what you need to build what you want to build. So you're right. Germany, America, Taiwan has two. I think Microsoft uses one of theirs, and those can all definitely occur. It's just you can't build them as quickly. You legitimately can't. It's physically not possible. And so what I'm saying is, if they say it tomorrow, this is one of the reasons, by the way, I always tell people, when you see people get together for a superstar video game, I'm like, why are you guys celebrating now? Wait for 3 years, because that game's not coming out for 3 years. Why are we all sitting here going, woohoo, they're working on this. It's not for 3. We won't see the result. We won't see the result of new chips until 2023 minimum now, is what they're saying. Okay. And the people that I'm hearing from, it's like, why would anybody even think 2023? Like, we're screwed. It's so I get where you're coming from, but it is far more technical than a $1 chip.
But we had
it's just a story I read, so it seems it was in a Dutch newspaper, so I was like, okay, it has to be.
The Dutch can't be trusted. I'm just joking.
The funny thing though is
it's not a joke. It's a real thing,
Oh, is it? I've but
I'm from Rotterdam, and I don't trust the rest of the country. I'm serious.
I'm just decent. Yeah, sorry.
As Dutch. Oh, that's right. Sorry.
But you know that the Dutch have a company that has a market share of 99.8% globally for lithography machines, the machines with which all the chips are manufactured. Every machine globally is coming from ASML, settled in the Netherlands.
I'm not a stockholder there. Sorry. Sorry, Rudy.
We had David Prien on the show, who's the senior director of hardware for Xbox, several months back, and he went through the processes and the struggles of supply chain due to COVID, primarily down to time zones and having to work remotely. And if something went wrong on the supply chain, he couldn't physically go there to do it. So you had to have one of their representatives who is there and then do a video call with them. But then because they couldn't physically walk around the factory to see what was going wrong, it was more a descriptive thing. So the person on the other end would be talking to them to say what was going wrong and then going on from there. So it was the actual supply chain issue, like you mentioned, ACG is a big problem, specifically with COVID, because it's not being able to physically get on the factory floor and find out what the issue is to resolve it. You've got to rely on video calls to resolve an issue, which is a whole nother problem. That is a real bad one. For me, personally, I nearly had a PlayStation 5 at launch. I had it pre-ordered.
What's a game that made you buy it, Drew?
Made me want to get it. Originally, it was Ratchet and Clank, and then knowing that God of War, because they announced God of War. Okay, God of War's coming out in 2021, so I'll get Ratchet and Clank. That's coming out in June. I've got some cross-gen stuff that I'll play, and then God of War come out later on in that. But then I sat waiting there and noticed, you know where it is? They've showed a logo for God of War. They've got only Ratchet and Clank. Demon Souls, I'm not a huge Demon Souls fan.
No, me neither.
It's not for me. Miles, I'm not a big Spider-Man fan, so that's not going to entice me. So I was thinking...
Down with Dutch.
Yeah.
Can't believe you. I love that game, man.
No, I've got Spider-Man on PlayStation 4. I've got the original one. I've played it, tried to play it, really, really did, because it was a game. You know what it is? I'm not massive. I love watching Marvel. I love DC. Like the Dark Knight trilogy is probably my favorite superhero trilogy, as it were. I actually love the Thors. I liked Avengers, but not so much. I wasn't a big fan of Guardians of the Galaxy, but superhero things has been kind of a hit or miss for me across the years, including video games specifically. Superhero games have never been really great.
Well, I don't think Avengers hit for anybody, Dutch.
No.
Just so you know.
No.
The game, at least.
The game definitely didn't. But yeah, it's never been a massive thing, and so Spider-Man was more of it. I got it very cheap. I got it for like what would be $15 to you. I got it for £10, which was absolutely nothing. So I was like, yep, buy it, try it. Why not? Why not? Played it. It is a good game, but is it something that grips me to continue playing it? No. And that's my thing. So it was not the case of, is Miles Morales going to sell me on the PlayStation 5? No, it's not. So then came the decision, right, I've already got the Series X pre-ordered. I've already got everything else pre-ordered. I've got the PlayStation 5 sitting there pre-ordered. Do I need that day one? The answer was no. I don't need the PlayStation 5 day one. I've got a PlayStation 4 Pro. Like, the vast majority of those games are on PlayStation 4 at the moment. And then when they announced Miles Morales was back compat, it was a case of, right, okay, then I don't need to purchase that, even if I did. And Ratchet & Clank would be the only one for June. And I was like, right, I'll potentially look at getting a PlayStation 5 in June. See what they've got. Yeah. By that point, they'll have announced a few more games coming out the tail end of the year, going into next year. The months roll on, the months roll on, the months roll on. Still nothing substantial to get me to say, right, at this moment, it's still just Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. So, am I intrigued? For me, God of War was my game of the year when that came out. The reboot, 2018, was my game of the year, hands down. The story, the way they told the story, the world building, the individual stories that they told throughout the world in terms of the mythical references and the historic storytelling and things that they did with Mimir was just brilliant. Loved the combat, etc. But then, again, God of War Ragnarok is one of my most anticipated games coming out. I know Cory Barlog and that team will do a phenomenal job with that game, so I've got really no doubts that that game will do well and be great. Uncharted, I did like that game, but Tomb Raider still beats it. Like, to me, Tomb Raider's always been the better game. And just to, it's again probably nostalgia. Sony really need, for me to invest in them, I need, again, Horizon's cross-gen. I know God of War's cross-gen. Gran Turismo's cross-gen. Like, there isn't a need for me to go out and purchase PlayStation 5 at the moment. And the only thing I want Sony to do is give me a need. And there's a lot of people that will be thinking the same thing, seeing a lot of these games going cross-gen. Like, well, other than the fact that it's going to be higher frame rates, what else? Like, give me another reason. Like, the DualSense isn't going to sell us on it. Like, that's not a defining moment. So give me a need. The only thing I'm looking for tomorrow is PlayStation. Give me a need to invest in PlayStation next year. It's not going to happen this year. Shortage of supply. It's physically impossible in the UK to get either a Series X or a PlayStation 5 unless you are on the money every day searching for them consoles or willing to pay a scalper through the nose, which is what I'm unwilling to do. I'm never going to be the one to pay $200 above asking price for technology, knowing that depreciation happens within a few years of it being out. That's not something that it's just not something that you do. But yeah,
I have a question for the panel then.
Yes.
So everybody can answer this. So aren't we all at the point now where instead of wanting I'm at the point now. Do you agree? Are we at the point where instead of me personally wanting Sony to sell me on a PS5 that I can't get anyway, I have one, but that people can't get, I want them to show games, and I don't care if they're on the PS4.
Yeah.
So that's where I am. Because Sony has pushed tech at times, but other times, Astrobot or what have you, they haven't had to push tech because something about the game was riveting anyway.
Yeah.
So to me, I think tomorrow is more about just games versus platforms.
Agreed.
And maybe that's just because of COVID or what have you. But I feel like sometimes we get caught up in the PS5 part of it, and instead it's more like I want Sony to bring their A game on these games that we're like, whoa, what? Like that's not what I expected. You know?
Well, the positive thing for me for Sony, and this is another reason as to why it's not so much as of a need to get PlayStation, is they've already done such a phenomenal job at presenting their games on prior generation that putting it on PlayStation 4 Pro versus PlayStation 5, like graphically, I know it'll be impressive on PlayStation 4 Pro regardless.
Yeah, right.
Those games will look good. I know they will. Like God of War looked phenomenal. Uncharted looked phenomenal. Last of Us 2 looked phenomenal. Spider-Man looks phenomenal. Like all of them games already look amazing on PlayStation 4 Pro. So, like as you mentioned, it is about showing those games and keeping up to that same standard they've set themselves, should we say? Because they have set their own standard on that.
Yeah. Other than Days Gone, but whatever.
But even then, I mean, on a graphical standpoint, it still looked good. It didn't look.
Not for me, man. I had the entire world disappearing. I got unlucky in that game. Yeah. But it's been patched up.
Good. That was unlucky. Like I was one of them. Again, as you mentioned, Cyberpunk earlier on. I was one of the very few and lucky people who only had. I didn't have any game breaking bugs, like zero. The only thing I had was some basic stuff that you've seen in GTA, where like cars would like slightly float into the floor.
Bro, did you buy a lottery ticket that day? Because you're the luckiest motherfucker I know.
And then you know when you've got
that's amazing.
The Johnny Silverhand kind of weird fuzziness that comes over.
Like, you didn't have any game breaking bugs in that POS at all?
Me neither.
Dude, are you sure you just didn't notice them?
None. Zero.
Because
the only thing I had, the
funniest story. Oh, go on. I was just going to say the funniest story.
Johnny Silverhand's overlay that came and stayed on after you'd finished his sequence, and he disappeared. It just stayed on, and all I had to do was just save the game, back out, come back in, and it was gone. That was it.
Okay. Because I had one of the best experiences I had. One of the top streamers on Twitch was streaming that game. And they were doing their spiel, you know, it's a Cyberpunk, blah, blah, blah. I haven't had any bugs. And as they say that, a car flies by upside down. And they made no mention of it. And I was like, And I'm not saying I notice. I'm saying I probably do notice things more than others. Like I am noticing, whether it be the walking the walk or just because as I'm playing. But dude, everybody I know who says they haven't had like some bug, and then when I start talking to them, like, well, for example, you had to because it was impossible not to because it was programmed the shitty AI for the cops.
Yeah.
The terrible AI. But then I know some people who are like, oh, I didn't notice that. So I guess that's not a bug or terrible. They just didn't notice it. So I think it's possible. It's just, dude, you're lucky, man. I don't know a single person who, once I start talking to them and breaking it down, that they don't start, like the walls of Jericho don't start falling. As I start going like, are you sure? And they're all,
I would love to have that discussion because I had a similar great experience. There were minor things.
I will bet you had bugs.
Yes, I had bugs. I'm not saying I
guarantee
didn't have bugs. I'm saying I didn't have any game-breaking bugs because
see, my believing you face is the same as me not believing you face. I'm just I'm just joking. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did.
Other open world games they won. I remember Fallout 4 or Skyrim games like that. They also had bugs. Of course, there were bugs in the game. But the thing really is, what is game breaking for me? Game breaking is when you cannot finish a quest. Game breaking is when it keeps crashing every 30 minutes. That's kind of game breaking. For me, it's not game breaking. If of course I have seen a pedestrian walk into a car or something like that, but that's for me not a game breaking bug. That is annoying. Yeah. But it isn't game breaking, and
it's normal. It's normal in Germany.
Awesome.
I was looking up as well, like himself. The only things I've seen, like I mentioned before, was cars slightly melting into the floor. But I've seen that in GTA, so I'm like, right, well, that doesn't I'm to the point now where I'm like, that doesn't. I don't like that. Clipping cars, especially in a large open world game, is something that you're kind of used to seeing now. It shouldn't be there, but it happens.
Or disappearing when you turn around, Dutch.
Such a weird thing. Such a weird thing. But the only thing that I think, and that I don't know whether or not that could be helped, was when you spawn your car in or spawn a vehicle in. and then it just pop, like appears underneath the car, and you're like, yeah, but again, I've had the same type of shit happen in GTA.
One of the reasons why I don't like,
hilarious.
other than teasing you guys, but one of the reasons why I don't like to push this is because even if somebody did experience like the broken AI or whatever, if they didn't notice it, I don't like to hammer on it too much, because it's then like, if they had a good memory of it, you don't want to sort of ruin it. It's almost like somebody's like, a kid is like, hey, it was a great birthday. And you're like, did you realize that was the day your parents decided to get divorced? And they're like, what? What? And now their 7th birthday is ruined, right? So to me, I joke and I tease, but at the same time, it's like, at some point you have to pull back, because it's like, if somebody, whether they noticed it or not, you know, it's like, okay, it's fine, because you don't want to piss too much on it. I will say though, you guys are lucky.
Yeah,
I wish my experience with that game had been 1/100 of what you got, because that's the maddest I've been at a game release. And I saw people, I don't know if you guys saw this, not even mentioning names, don't give a shit. This happened prior to me getting into gaming, but I saw people giving that game a pass, and then later on podcasts and stuff being like, well, maybe I shouldn't have reviewed it. And I'm like, first of all, you can't have it both ways. How did you spend 8 hours editing your video, 60 hours playing it, and in all that time, you didn't think that it was probably not the right score to give it? And then later back away and go, maybe I was wrong. No, you were fucking wrong. You were fucking wrong right then. You let it get by. And if you didn't notice it, then you should never review a game again.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. Like, you either did and you let it slide and there's an integrity issue, or you didn't notice it, and therefore what context do you have for ever telling me something's good if you can't even notice these things?
Yeah.
I was very angry at that game because it was broken. But at the same time, hats off to you, because what you experienced.
You know what it is? The problem is that I feel really sorry for people. I feel really sorry for people who didn't get the chance to experience the game as well as I did, because that game was so good. Like, I played the shit out of that game. Cyberpunk.
I feel like I'm in another world. I know.
Now, the story.
This
like,
is impossible.
This is the thing. Like, not just the story, but all of the offshoot things were entirely different. Like,
what's that gif where the guy goes boo and their head explodes?
Like, all of the side quests,
really?
Everything worked. Like, there was no issues with side quests. Like, none of them didn't cash in. Like, everything I was doing worked fine.
Maybe it's the European version of
dude, exactly. Man, maybe because you guys pay a little bit more than I do, maybe that a little bit of money went to Cyberpunk, to CDP. They gave you the better copy, dude. I don't even. And wow, okay,
yeah,
that's cool though.
Like, really
shit happens,
and that's the thing. Because if people got the chance to play that game with as few issues that I did, to the point where it was literally just, I'm used to seeing that weird car issue in GTA, so that's not bothering us, or a couple of button clipping, like, really silly things that aren't going to break the game and don't have an issue. Like, if people had a chance to play the game like that, they would have loved the game. But I can see why people were so mad, because some of the bugs, some of the issues, the crashes, the brokenness that I've seen in that game on multiple platforms, I can understand why people just did not even entertain that game in the end. And
hey, you know what? Live and learn, right?
Yep.
We all now have that memory. Yep. And it's too bad that we had it, but it makes us a little smarter on our next purchase a little bit. I don't like to be too cynical, because then you don't give anybody any kind of benefit of the doubt. Yeah. But at least now everybody can, it feels cool, because I can say Cyberpunk and you might say, well, I had a good time, but you're not saying you didn't have a bad time, which does happen in other game arguments where somebody, like, if you don't like Zelda, you'll hear people be like, well, then you're fucking stupid. So, but here with this game, you don't hear that too much. It's like, okay, I get you. You experienced something I didn't, and there's a little bit of a meeting of the minds, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah,
it kind of had a Watch Dogs effect on, I think, most people, in that when, like, the first Watch Dogs was shown, everybody was like, holy crap, have you seen that game? It looks amazing. And then obviously we know what happened with that, and it didn't come out looking exactly the same, and everybody's like, whatever game comes out, I was like, is it another Watch Dogs? Is it another Watch Dogs? And you're kind of getting that now with other stuff. It's like, is it Cyberpunk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
But
It's an interesting time to be a gamer when that memory now is in YouTube as well. It's not in magazines where that memory is gone. It will forever be on YouTube. You know, it will forever be a video that I can reference later, which is it's a weird time to be alive when you think about that, because I grew up when there was just magazines. You know,
same, exactly same.
Yeah,
was my toilet reading material.
Miss those days.
Computer game magazines
and demo discs.
Did you have Power Limited as well then, Dutch?
What?
In Holland, did you have Power Unlimited as well?
Everything. Yeah.
Power
But
Unlimited.
my father was an airline pilot anyway, so he was always consistently going to different countries and picking up random things and getting demo discs or magazines from everything.
I miss the demo disc days.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And not to say that
same, Sean.
he used to come back with literally a box full of new PC games, because PC games is where I started. Like, it was my father, so he used to come back and just boom, there we go. There's a whole new case of PC games. Like, have fun, choose what you want to play. And that was great.
Too, you Dutch. I don't know. So it sounds like, was this PC 486 or were you back in Apple IIe? I don't know your age.
I am 33. So if you go, back
you would have been
least...
more along the lines of like 486 is like or a PC, but the old style one. But it is
Very
crazy
old,
to think too. You'll have people who are full of shit, and they'll be like, "Remember back in the day when PC games were perfect or whatever?" And I'm like, "You
never perfect, never perfect."
There were websites that took patches and put them all on one website because you couldn't even find the patch. Elder Scrolls.de, which I believe was like a Denmark website, which would take everybody's patches from games and put them on one place so you could find them. And I used to go there. Or Elder Patches, I think is what it was called. But you would have to go and find all this stuff. Games wouldn't have patches. By the way, Pool of Radiance, the original one that came out years ago, deleted your C drive when you uninstalled it. So fuck you. Like, when you try to tell me everything was perfect. Or somebody will be like, remember when everything was 60 FPS? And I'm like, I have a Sega Master System and I'm playing Double Dragon. Entire pixel levels disappear because it can't draw enough pixels. So you get that huge line where one pixel will be here and it'll be a line. And you're just like, it wasn't perfect. What are you fucking thinking?
Nostalgia is perfect.
ACG, 99.99.
Yeah, Sega Dreamcast, one of the best days ever, man. I have every Sega Dreamcast game commercial.
Oh, really?
No pirated. Yeah, Sega Dreamcast is Sega Saturn, Dreamcast are probably my favorite systems. Yeah,
I love you.
I'm going back as far
Dreamcast
as
I love you. I love you.
Floppy disk games. That's as far as I go back at floppy disk installation games.
Dude, you want me to tell you a secret? I was at school one day and they had floppy disk 5.5s.
Yeah,
and we found out that by using a paper clip, you could clip one edge, and now your one-sided floppy disk was two-sided. And they used to sell them for twice as much normally. And it was like finding a treasure. It was like Indiana Jones with the fucking... I remember one of my friends, his name is Les. I don't know where you are, Les. But Les was like, I just figured something out. You don't have to buy double-sided floppy disks. Just use a paper clip the other side, and now you can flip it over. And it's all because of this little chunk out of the side of the floppy disk, and it was the greatest experience. I remember sneaking in my mom was a middle school secretary. I would sneak into her Trash 80 TRS 80, and I would install Akabeth, which was prior to the first of the Ultima games, and it was still made by what's his name, but it was and it was rail grid lines. It wasn't even like, there was no like color. It was just these grid lines of a dungeon, and they would go like rum, rum, and playing those and just being enamored, thinking it was, how many times have we all said it looks real?
Yeah.
It looks real. Back in the Sega Genesis days, it looks real. And you're like, dude, no, it didn't. It didn't look real at all. How many times, man? We've said it so many times. Like, oh, dude, you'd be with your friends. You'd be playing like Virtual Fighter 1. Fucking people are made of what looks like logs. And you're like, it looks real. I can tell Lau. He looks exactly like my uncle. And you're like, no, he doesn't, man. Unless your uncle's got a really bad infction. Yeah. He doesn't look anything like your uncle.
Yeah, really square. He's got a really square head.
really square head.
But we used to install Doom onto floppy disks and take it into school, and then just sneakily try and play that in between IT lessons.
We got 2 weeks detention for playing games. Yes. They used to believe that games would burn out the PCs.
Yeah,
that was the old myth.
Wow.
Yeah. I had so many fucking just years of detention because I would always be in there sneaking. Conan was one of the games. Ultima, when it became a big deal. the original green monochrome. It wasn't even color. It was green and black. If people don't know what I'm talking about, go look at monochrome, like monitors. They weren't white and black. They were green and black.
Yeah,
so ugly.
Yeah.
All these years attention, and now you live out of gaming. That's well done, mate.
Yeah. Prove them wrong. Oh dear me, but no, it is really great. Now we will move on to the final topic, and it's much of a shorter one. Again, based around this time Xbox. Now this isn't primarily regarding, let's say, a showcase, because they are going to Tokyo Game Show. But I think what Xbox have done a really great job in doing is dampening expectations a little bit and just saying, listen, like, this isn't going to be like this mega event. We're going to show off some stuff. It's going to be catered more towards the Japanese and the Asian market. So there's going to be a few cool announcements for them, but it is going to be great. However, there is going to be a few good announcements there. But Xbox aren't obviously finished there, because this year it is their 20th anniversary. And they still have a few little things up their sleeves that they want to show off. Now, they've already shown off a whole host of things coming up in the future, and that's the one thing that we can praise them for, is we now have a timeline of when we expect all these magnificent kind of titles in development to come out. We know what is expected, what we can expect, but right now, it's more of surprises. Okay, so what else have we got to look forward to then? We already know we've got Forza Horizon this year. We've got Stalker coming out kind of next year. We've got Halo coming out the tail end of the year. We've got an abundance. We've got the Gunk still coming out. Crossfire X is still coming out this year. We've got so many things. Scorn's still coming out this year, believe it or not. I mean, it's just, we've seen quite a bit of gameplay-ish for that, but not really anything on the big screen. So we've still got a lot to look forward to this year, and then a timeline of games coming out in the future, which is great. But what do people really expect to see then, being the 20th anniversary of Xbox this year? What is left for them to show off, both at Tokyo Game Show and the remainder of the year? I'm going to put this one to Archie first. What do you think?
I mean, if you put it like that, I have to advertise my video I uploaded earlier today, because it was basically covering exactly that.
Do
it. Hello, gamers from around the world.
So yeah. What do I expect? Actually, I don't expect any major news coming out of Tokyo Games Show. We will probably see their few Japanese games that are already out there coming to Game Pass. I don't think it will be even that big, like a Persona coming to the Xbox. It will be smaller stuff that we have heard or haven't heard before, but it's nothing major. For me, there are two major question marks left for this year. The first is, we actually have a Remedy game coming exclusively to the Xbox ecosystem that is supposed to come out this year. They said that in their investor call like 2 months ago. It's still scheduled for this week, and it's Crossfire X, the campaign. And we haven't heard anything about it. Haven't seen it, we haven't heard it, and it's now already almost middle of September. That's a big question mark for me. That's the first thing. We have also a couple of other smaller AA games like Chorus or Scorn, where we don't have a proper release date yet. They are also scheduled for this year. Then for me, the bigger, and that's the first thing, mainly Crossfire from Remedy. It's a big game. Yeah. Well, we all assume it is big. The second thing is the actual celebration in November. Will there be an XO event, something like that? It would only make sense for them to have that. But yeah, with the world being like it is right now, we all are uncertain how will it go when the fall season starts. Will the pandemic numbers go up again? We don't know. Yeah. I think it's for them hard to plan right now, because I bet that Microsoft wants to have that physically. These XO events from Microsoft is just they are something else when you do them in person, and it would be kind of that event where Microsoft not just wants to celebrate the end of the last 20 years, but also kind of the end of that pandemic hiatus. Everyone was anticipating that, now that we are all vaccinated, but who knows? So, Microsoft could show or do a lot with that event, not just in terms of, they have a lot to show. Like I said earlier, they have 21 games announced, first-party games announced. However, we haven't seen gameplay for any of those.
Yes.
So that is obviously a big chance to do that, but they could also introduce something new to the backward compatibility program to celebrate the past 20 years, stuff like that. They could do a lot with such a show. We will see what they will actually do. And one last thing I want to say, I think that the anniversary event or whatever it will be, stream, I don't know, will be the time, middle of November, is when we see Halo Infinite for first time with campaign gameplay.
Yes. Yeah, I think you've got a good point there. Shom, what would you like to, or hope to see Xbox kind of, should we say, finish off the year with in terms of events to help celebrate the 20th year, but also at Tokyo Game Show, of course. Primarily for that one, it could have more to do with things coming to Xbox Game Pass, and potential partnerships on games that weren't on Xbox that are coming to Xbox, Japanese titles, Asian titles, etc. We're starting to see a lot of a big shift towards more Asian titles coming onto the Xbox platform, big and small. There's a small kind of Asian horror game on the marketplace right now for something like $15. That is quite intriguing, but it is definitely opening the market up more to Asian developers. What would you like to see going forward for the remainder of this year from Xbox? What would you anticipate seeing?
I feel that question is like you're leading the witness a little bit there. It's like you were guiding me down a path of where you want me to go. I don't know. For Tokyo, I'm not quite sure what they could show. The one thing it wouldn't surprise me, and I think a lot of people would like this, would be the Persona franchise coming to the Xbox, whether that be in Game Pass or just in general. I think that would be a big hit for them. I think I'd be leaning more towards Game Pass just because of the ability to be able to play it on your phone on the go, using the cloud and whatnot. As for the 20th, I'm not too sure. I mean, I kind of agree with what ACG was saying earlier, that there's no point in blowing their load on stuff now, because if you can't get anything, there's no point building up the hype for it just to dissipate. And I think one good thing that they did with E3 was that they'd held a lot of consoles back, and as soon as their conference was over, they just released them into the wild and they all got snapped up. Whether they can do that again now, I don't know. It depends on how many they've made and how many have been able to put back. So I'm kind of thinking of, again, with the Halo thing, maybe showing campaign then, maybe showing a bit of, I'd like to see whatever Project Maya is about.
Yes.
But I don't think we're going to see that till next year. I think that's going to be an E3 thing next year. Maybe a bit more into the Hellblade 2. But again, you don't want to show too much because you don't want to get overhyped. So I'm not entirely sure. Maybe there'll be a new controller. Maybe that's what it'll be. The 20th anniversary controller.
20th anniversary controller.
Oh, you can bet that they will have stuff like that, controllers and
special edition
other
Xbox
swag.
Series X 20th anniversary edition.
A Duke edition. A Duke.
Yeah,
no,
Duke
I
edition.
can't be bothered with that. I want something that's functional.
That's fair enough. Karak, what do you expect to see them going for the remainder of the year at Xbox? What do you think would be, let's say from your point of view, like you mentioned from a business perspective, what do you think would be the wisest thing for Xbox to do for the remainder of the year? See out. They've had quite a strong year in terms of announcements. They've certainly put out, like you say, a great timeline of events, should we say, for the next couple of years as to what we can expect to see. But what do you think would be the best moves for them to do to see out the remainder of the year at these events going forward?
I apologize, and I wasn't ignoring you. I've got your question in my brain. I was just responding to something I saw about Life is Strange. Somebody's posting reviews, and my embargo was different. So I was just responding. I want to make sure people don't think I was ignoring your question. So for this event in particular, Microsoft has a weird issue where they'll do stuff that I think is pretty fan forward and no one will care. They did what was that anime fighting game that they did on the original Xbox, and then they did a remake on Phantom Dust. And people are like, meh, meh. You know, I don't know if Microsoft hits exactly on the Tokyo Game Show as much as maybe they used to in the past. The stuff that I want to see here in particular that has to do with, you know, those kind of games would be Sega's stuff. Persona being announced. But there's so many Sega games that I don't know what's going on with their IPs, and I don't know why Microsoft isn't eating some of those up. And I'm not being a fan. I'm not saying Virtua Fighter. It doesn't sell well. I love Virtua Fighter. It's one of my favorite games of all time. But I'm saying some of the games that do sell well, Microsoft hasn't merged with Sega until Like a Dragon.
Yeah.
Right? So I would like to see them do more stuff with Sega.
Shining Force.
Well, yeah, of course. But, I mean, that's defunct now. I would love to see that. I would love to see a bunch of Sega stuff. I would say for them, probably not a bunch. I would love to be surprised, but I don't think I've heard even... There's like a couple acquisition rumors that have popped up here and there, but
acquisition rumors as well, not small.
Yeah. And there's one that I talked about on a prior podcast that, you know, I still hear as a thing, but it's like it hasn't popped up. So it's like, okay, I guess that was wrong. You know, even though it's from trusted sources, you never quite know what's going on right now with all of this stuff.
And the problem with them as well is that they can take a while. They take so long, so it depends on how far along it is.
Yeah, and I don't think they would announce it at the Tokyo Game Show. So anybody listening, don't probably expect that to be the place they announce, unless it is a Japanese-based game or Japanese-based IP. Then I could see them doing that. I want a Duke, but that's just because I think it's my favorite controller of all time. Fuck the haters. It'll never happen.
Do you like a wireless Duke, or are you going through that third-party company that makes the Dukes?
I've got one. Yeah, I've got one. I want a gamepad so big that you have to hit it like a rhythm fucking pad.
Like a Buffett
controller.
The Duke.
Yeah, dude, everything hurts my hands like a little baby tiny itsy bitsy Switch where my fucking thumb hurts from trying to crank it to get... I want shit where I'm like, go, boop, 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 boop. That's what I want, man. A, B, 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 A. I would love a Duke. I would love an official one. It's not going to happen. But, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff they can do. As for the 20th, real quick, I don't know if they do anything for the 20th because it's so hard to plan, even prior to COVID. But now with COVID, hitting a certain date with something huge is very difficult to be like, okay, we're going to do this on a certain date. And it's like, well, people got sick. They couldn't go to work. I think it'd be something small versus something big, something to just be like, hey, this is for the fans. A remake or a remaster would be cool on some of the very old games. But I don't really think we'll see any of that. I don't know. Microsoft doesn't seem to be into that kind of surprise. Backwards compatibility, I could see them going back. If they did Rally Sport Championship, I would kill because it's my favorite rally game of all time. But there are some backwards compatible games that never made the jump.
Yeah,
that would be cool if they were like 20. How about this? 20 games for 20 years or whatever. That would be cool. And even if they weren't the greatest games in the world, backwards compatibility is such a big deal. And despite what Sony said, they're just now figuring that out. But yeah, backwards compatibility is awesome. I would like to see that.
Yeah, awesome stuff. And Vin, what would you? You're a big Sega fan, so no doubt it's going to be in line with ACG, but what would you like to see come out for the remainder of the year? I know the pipe dream is to see your favorite franchise, but aside from that favorite franchise, what else would you like to see?
Well, you know, just a deal, man. You know, I mean, Sony has this deal with Square Enix for Final Fantasy. You know, if I was Microsoft, you know, and there's a lack of RPG, you know, Japanese RPG in my system, I just contact Sega. You know, they have Shining Force, they have Panzer Dragoon Saga, Skies of Arcadia, you name it, you know, and make a deal, you know, fund them, let them make the game, you know. I hope one of those games will eventually come to modern platforms. If it's multi-platform, I don't care, but make it. Let's Sega make it, and but in realistic way, Tomb Raider, Square Enix is Japanese, and it's Tomb Raider is also 25 years anniversary this year, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider ended pretty open, so there has to be a new game in the making. I hope to see something of that. Like Shomberlon said, Persona coming to Xbox, maybe Shin Megami Tensei as well, or some other games. That will be a big deal. But and of course, I might be one of the few, but I'm really hoping Microsoft lets whatever studio or Forever Entertainment or Sega or Capcom, let them finish Scalebound, please. Please finish Scalebound.
Never happening, man. That's over, buddy. Let me kill your love.
Kill your dreams.
I know it's like a 0.1% chance, but I was really interested in that game. I love the idea. I could, with multiplayer, with 4 players, and we have all our each own dragon, built to whatever type of dragon you want, and I still hope that game gets finished one day.
Yeah.
But in a realistic way, I think Square Enix will come up with a new Tomb Raider. Like Rise of Tomb Raider, it was also funded by Microsoft, and then timed exclusive on Xbox for a while. So I hope that one happens, and maybe like the other guys told, backward compatibility. There's plenty of good games from Japan as well. Lost Odyssey is backward compatible.
God,
Blue
yeah. I'd
Dragon
kill for a new Lost Odyssey.
compatible.
I'd kill for a new Lost Odyssey. I don't know why they're
Or
not
a
pursuing
remastering.
that. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why are Microsoft not pursuing Lost Odyssey, Karak?
Yeah, but
why is
apparently
that not a thing?
Mistwalker is apparently Apple Studio now. They're from Apple.
Yep.
Apple Gaming.
Yep.
But they also have this IP Sudeki. I don't know if you guys know the game from the original Xbox.
Yeah.
Really great game.
Yep.
Come on, bring it to backward compatible, remaster it, whatever. There's so many IPs at Xbox that or Sega that needs remastering. Forever Entertainment made a brilliant Panzer Dragoon remake. Let them remake. Some other games. There's brilliant games in the portfolio that are not being used by so many good studios.
Yeah.
I hope to see some of those.
Yeah, that's fair.
But Tomb Raider is I think Tomb Raider will be the big, the big real one surprise that we'll get.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
It has to be. 20-year Xbox, 25 years Tomb Raider. If they don't show it this year, it's a loss for Square Enix.
Yeah. Last, before we wrap up the show, we have a super chat coming in there. Victor Allenstein, or Alistein, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. $5 super chat. Support. I like the Battle of the Beards.
I have no beard.
How about a Shenmue 1-3 plus 4 announcement?
Yes,
people would
please.
love a new Shenmue as well.
Yes.
It would be awesome. But yeah, personally for me, I'd like to eventually see Microsoft come good on that Final Fantasy 14 port that they promised, but also eventually get some kind of date as to when Final Fantasy 7 Remake makes its way to the Xbox. As we know, that was timed and it was coming to the Xbox, but we never knew when. We know that got pushed back a little bit with the release of Intergrade on the PlayStation 5. But they're my key things. I'm a massive Final Fantasy fan. Final Fantasy 6 is the all-time favourite. Final Fantasy 9 is then my second, and Final Fantasy 7 is third.
Ooh!
Yeah. Final Fantasy 7 isn't the best one. Final Fantasy 6 and 9 are better stories. Final Fantasy 7 was great, and it was probably one of the ones that I played a lot of when I was younger, but
okay, we have to postpone that to another podcast because we fill it easily an entire show with that discussion.
God, yeah.
I think the chat is still easy on this. What Drew said, it's still easy. I thought it would become a riot, but a lot of people say 7 is the best.
But yeah,
I'm gonna say something worse. 10 is the best because of Blitzball.
we'll have a whole different Final Fantasy discussion another day. But that's what I'd like to see them come good on the promise that Final Fantasy 14 would make its way to Xbox and the 7 remake a release date. That's all I would really want to see. They're very easy things to be able to show if they have eventually got a date to be able to say, yep, that port's happening now. This is a release date. And
drops live during the event.
That would be even better.
Yeah.
Straight into Game Pass as well. You've noticed
that's what I'm thinking. And
obviously the Final Fantasy, the older games now have come out of Game Pass and are now into PlayStation Now. So it leaves room for them to now fall in with the newer versions of these games. But yeah, that's really what I want to see. Anything else is a bonus. I'm just intrigued to see what they want, but I'm not bothered about new titles at a Tokyo Game Show, and I certainly don't expect it. I just want to see what's happening with Final Fantasy 14 and 7 Remake.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's all I want to know. But thank you to the awesome chat this evening. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you, everybody. You've been awesome. There's, as usual, absolutely no hostility towards anybody. Everyone's been great. It's been having a good chat, getting involved. It's been really good fun. Thank you very much to all those who super chatted as well throughout, and all of the new subscribers. Thank you very much for your support. Please make sure to like and share it out. And of course, if you don't already, please subscribe. It really does help. But I want to say a huge thank you as well to ACG for coming on. It has been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a blast.
Really great fun. And I really like your insights as well. It's the short period that I was kind of podcasting with you on Iron Lords was good fun. And I'm really glad to be able to get you on the show and kind of show our community a little bit more of who you are, because of our community is also very new to the podcasting game as well. There's a lot of people that have only started watching podcasts when we started creating podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to show them off to new creators that they haven't seen, that have been around a while, and do a really great job, is also awesome. But so yeah, thank you very much. Please let people know where they can find you and your awesome content.
YouTube/ACG, I think. Yeah, or just look up ACG, Angry Centaur Gaming, whichever. You'll find me blathering about something. Apparently, I'm late on a review, so now I've got to figure that out today, I guess. And what's so funny, you've dealt with embargoes, right, Dutch?
Yep.
Have you dealt with... Dude, they're like, it breaks tomorrow, and then today I saw a bunch of reviews behind the scenes, so that's what I was emailing about. I was like, hey, blah, 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 and they're like, oh, no. Reviews are okay, just... video reviews aren't fine until tomorrow. And I'm like, no problem. Then I go online. There's a bunch of video reviews. And I'm all, do you mean my video review? What the like they have, I hate this. Sometimes you get these embargoes that make no sense. But yeah, if you stop by, we'll be doing reviews. We got the podcast and walking the walks. We're going to do some interviews. Composers are one of the big ones that I like to interview. So we're going to be interviewing actually, I can't talk about one of those, just dawned on me.
Yes.
But we're going to be doing some interviews for some big games that are coming out with their composers as well as some designers. So yeah, check it out. If you get a chance, I would appreciate it. If you don't, no worries.
Bomb Rush Cyberpunk?
What?
Bomb Rush Cyberpunk?
Bomb Rush
Cyberpunk. The Jet Set Radio successor. You have this Nakamura guy from Jet Set Radio.
I absolutely can't hear him.
No?
He's saying something, but I can't understand it. It's like it suddenly switched to another language.
Go on. The Jet Set Radio developer. What was it? Bomb Rush Cyberpunk?
Yeah.
A new
Are
game.
you asking me?
Is he coming?
No. Okay, jeez. That was so out from left field, it literally sounded like you were talking another language.
Oh.
I was all, what is he talking about? I was like so confused. No. It won't be that person. Man, that accent came on thick for me for some reason. It was like, what's and I was like,
My English is really bad.
No, it's good. It's just that one time I have no clue what was happening. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for checking out. Thanks for having me on. We'll get Dutch on mine. Won't be this Friday, but I'll contact you behind the scenes. And anybody here, feel free. Dutch, you can actually pass on. I'll email you, and then you can pass on to these guys all the contact data, and we'll get everybody on the podcast.
Awesome. That would be brilliant. Most definitely, yes. Most definitely. Next up, we'll start bottom to top. Boxenberger, if you let people know what you've got coming on, brother, and where they can find you.
Yeah, first, it's been a pleasure with ACG. Been following you for a while.
Excellent.
I think it's almost 3 years now or so that I discovered your channel. So it's been a pleasure to be on a show with you finally. And yeah, people can find me basically everywhere under Boxenberger, of course, on Xbox Live, PlayStation, Twitter, and of course also here on YouTube, where I have my small but growing channel. And yeah, I just put out a video today, and earlier this week, I think on Monday was another one. So there's a good kind of content, amount of content coming. I have a couple of things I can't talk about yet, also in the pipeline. So yeah, it's exciting times. I mean, the gaming season has started, so a lot of games coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of news coming, events coming. It's great, and it's exciting.
Most definitely. Next up, Shomberlon. You let people know where they can find you, brother. And obviously, if you get a chance to game, I know today you're probably going to have a nice relax and potentially put a game on or something after this, but let people know what you're going to be up to as well.
I'm probably going to be playing Cursed because that is crack.
I've seen you've been playing that a lot recently.
A lot of the time, it's just a case of I leave the Xbox on. I might have a couple of games before. Yeah, a lot of the time, it's just a case of before I do some uni work, I'll have a couple of games and then I'll do my uni work and the computer's still on, so it's still registering me as in. So I have played it a lot. I've played it like, I don't know, maybe 40 odd hours, but it's not as much as it looks when you do see me on. Although I was quite happy today. I got a birthday achievement. I got an achievement that's just like, it's so ridiculously hard. I think only 0.08% of people have it, and it's just basically open 4 different types of fridges in one match, and the fridges contain loot. It's basically a loot box. Okay. So they'll have weapons, armor, and they kind of vary in rarity. And just finding 4 in one game is nigh impossible, and I just happened to spawn into the perfect one.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you can find me on there. You can find me on Xbox, on Shomberlon, and Twitter. Although Twitter, I don't really use that much. I just lurk and follow other people, and normally wake up to see what drama's gone on while I've been asleep. Is pretty much what Twitter is about for me these days. So I don't really post that much on Twitter. But if you want to message me, I'll get back to you if I can be bothered. No, that sounds really rude. I will get back to you. Ask Stu always knows. He messages me. It might take a couple of days, but I do get back to him. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Sweet. And last but not least, Hertog Vin, brother, if you let people know what you're going to be up to. Of course, you're one of our streamers now over on Twitch. Let people know what you're going to be up to and what you're going to be playing.
At the moment, The Last of Us 1 and 2. And after that, Eternal Sonata on the Xbox 360. That's next on the list. After that, I hope I have my Dreamcast back to finish Grannell 2.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
Probably gonna be some more Halo with the community guys, Gears 5, stuff like that. Because Saturday back to work for me, unfortunately.
Yes.
So yeah, you can find me on Twitch on Hertog Vin. You can find me on Twitter, on OnlyFans, on Instagram, whatever, you name it. And on this show, of course, every Wednesday, except next week. Then I have to work.
Yeah, at work next week, unfortunately. But,
ACG, yeah. I really liked you. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was a blast.
I'm sorry, I didn't know of you before, but I just subbed like 2 minutes ago. I'm sorry.
No worries. No worries.
I'm new to this. So, and thank you, chat. You were amazing again as always. Love the talks. Sorry for my bad English sometimes.
Just one time. I don't know if it was bad. Like I said, I think it was just me not knowing what game you were talking about.
No, but I have to sometimes I pronounce the words a bit wrong, so
it's all good, brother.
It's getting better each week, but sometimes it's terrible. So that's about it. So where can we find you, Mr. Dutch?
You can find me on Twitter and on YouTube at WandrinDutch. On Xbox, you can find me at something very similar, thanks to the character limitations. It's abbreviated to WandrinDutch. But other than that, we also have a second podcast on still tomorrow with ID at Xbox developer Kelechi Apakama for upcoming game Stormlight. He was meant to be on last week, but we had a severe shortage of panel members. So it is being brought forward to tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to kind of introducing people to that up-and-coming indie game that's in development exclusively at the moment for Xbox and Steam, called Stormlight, which is an open-world RPG developed by just 3 people. It looks very promising, so looking forward to everybody seeing that. And if you do get a chance, of course, stop by and show some love to indie developers, because, of course, without indies, we wouldn't really be where we are today in the gaming community. But thanks once more to everybody for turning up today. It's been an absolute blast. Please make sure to like, share it out, and subscribe. Everybody have an awesome night and go and enjoy some gaming. Thanks again, and see you all later.
Peace out.
Bye-bye.